Thank you, everybody, for showing up a couple minutes after I went live, so nobody noticed that I forgot to set the screen to my waiting screen, and I almost just started screen from, like, the screen of chatting. I almost forgot. But it is okay. I set up the stream, and then I realized I was still on the stream. I was still on, like, the chatting screen. And then I'm like, oh no, I need to go to waiting. And then I accidentally went to the old waiting screen. And I'm like, wait, wrong waiting. And then I went to the new waiting screen. But yeah. Awak. Well, maybe not completely awak. Maybe not completely awak. Maybe not totally and completely a whack, you know? Just a little bit of whack. But it looks like Sundarathalos is a whack. And it looks like Markler is a whack. And it looks like Comfy Cow is a whack. And it looks like Ziazinos is a whack. And it looks like Beba is a whack on YouTube. And it seems like Madsen is a whack. I was egg jump scared, suddenly. Egg. You go live, and then instantly, egg. without a moment to spare, egg. Good eggy morning, Lars. Egg a whack, egg a whack, sort of. Feeling extra comfy today. Well, I wasn't sure, because yesterday, I'm glad I didn't have anything planned, because I ended up getting a headache, which is gone now, but it also meant that, I didn't do anything yesterday. I spent the whole day, like, being sleepy and doing nothing. And feeling bad that I'm now behind on Singing March. I mean, I still have everything I need to do for the rest of the week for Singing March, but yeah. So last night, I wasn't sure what was going to happen. Because last night I was like, you know what? I'm gonna schedule a stream for tomorrow morning. I don't know what it's gonna be. It's just gonna be, like, placeholder. Because, like, I don't know. I will do whatever I feel like. And then this morning I woke up and I'm like, I don't really have the energy for singing. I don't really have the energy for, like, games. I don't know what games to play. I don't know. Choosing what game to play for stream is starting to feel like, you know when you have to choose what to make for dinner? And it's not that you don't like eating, and it's not that you don't want to eat. It's just that, like, the fact that there's just so much food that exists in the world is just, like, overwhelming, and you're like, and then dinner time passes and you haven't eaten anything. That's how choosing a game for stream has felt lately, you know? There's a reason why I keep, like, streaming the same things over and over, is because, like, when I choose anything else, I, like, scroll through my Steam library and I'm like, because, like, I don't know, there's games I want to play, but not necessarily on stream. And there's stuff that I'm, like, saving specifically for stream, but I don't know when I could. I have a few games I probably could pull up. Not today, but, like, on another day. Mostly RPG Maker ones, but yeah. It's nice to do nothing sometimes. But yeah, just yapping, since that's usually what I end up doing anyway, you know? Because, like, I don't know, it's not like I haven't been playing games off stream recently, it's just that, like, some of them are, like, the same game that I play on stream, like, you know, I still zhong off stream, and I still play Katamari off stream. But, like, I play those on stream already, so that doesn't really count. And then, I don't know, everything else I've played is stuff that I play off stream because I don't really feel like streaming it. Like, it's like visual novels and stuff, where I'm like, I don't want to be reading the whole time. I'm not... Voice acting is not my area of expertise. So, I'm just like, you know what? I don't know. I can't even talk about... Okay, I feel like lately I keep, like, watching and playing new stuff, and I'm having a good time with it, but unfortunately I keep watching and playing new stuff that cannot be meaningfully discussed without spoiling the entire thing. I'm like... like, I'm just sitting here, I'm like, okay, I've been watching Severance, but I'm not totally caught up on Severance, like, I'm a couple episodes behind, so I'm like, okay, I can't really talk about that, because I'm gonna be spoiled, and then, like, yesterday I finished, Urban Myth Urban Myth Dissolution Center, and it has one of those endings that like recontextualizes everything earlier on the game. So I'm like, okay, I can't talk about that because that's gonna spoil it for everybody else. So I'm like, man, I'm like, I should engage with culture, and then I engage with culture, and I'm like, man, now I have to wait for everybody else to engage with the same culture so I can actually talk about it. I've participated in some game jams. I have an RPG Maker game that got tons of attention because it plays nothing like any RPG Maker, regular RPG Maker game. Yeah, no, I have a few of the classics that I have not played yet are sitting in my Steam library. Like I have Ib, I think. I have a whole bunch that are like installed. I just have yet to open them. Because yeah, people have been telling me to play Ib for a while. Because a while back I played like 2022, I played Yume Nikki, and I played... Or was it 2023? No, it was 2022. I played Yume Nikki, and then I played Omori. And I was like, yes, I will continue to play RPG Maker games on stream, and then I didn't. I do engage with Severance and also finish Myth. Yeah, Myth, I don't know. The ending... How do I say anything without spoiling it? The ending is controversial. It is controversial. You look at the Steam page, and half of the bad reviews are people who did not like the ending. Personally, I did not mind the ending. However, I am somebody who plays a lot of like mystery visual novels. So like to have an ending that is like out of left field where it's like, okay, I sort of guessed that it could be, but then I was like only like 60% of the way there. I'm like, okay, that's refreshing. It's nice to have, because I don't know, I feel like with a lot of mystery games, I feel like I've gotten to the point that like I spend a lot of the story being like 2 steps ahead of the characters, right? Like this happens when I feel like I've just gotten, it's not that I'm too smart for these games, it's that like I'm too familiar with the patterns. I'm too familiar with how these games are written and how these games like, how these mysteries usually play out that I'm like, I'm 2 steps ahead of everybody at all times. And yeah. But that one, it's like, yeah, the ending was like, okay, I was like 60% of the way there, but then it just like hit me with a curveball that I was like, okay. I mean, at first you like experience it and you're like, what? This is dumb. And then you're like, wait, never mind. This actually sort of makes sense. So yeah, I think I'll be okay with that since I like weird endings, but I'll know for sure when I get there. Yeah. Because again, it's a very divisive ending. It's a very divisive ending. I think, I don't know, I feel bad because like the game, I left a bad review on Steam, and the problem is that like I did the thing because Steam doesn't let you do a neutral review, where I was like, okay, everything about this game is good, but what is going on with that translation? I don't know what's going on with the translation. You know what? Before I keep talking, I'm going to switch away from the egg music, and I'm going to turn on different music so that your brains don't melt from listening to this exact same loop. There we go. Let me turn that up a little. There we go. She started predicting. The predictor. Yeah, like, I don't know what happened with the translation, because the demo did not have any issues with the translation, but the translation for this game is incredibly janky, and I don't know what happened. Like, I don't know if the team just didn't have enough time, but like, okay, there's a lot of like random, like, not necessarily typos, but there's sentences where like a word is missing, or there's like missing punctuation, or like just general things where I'm like, did they even proofread this? Did they even like, did somebody just like look over it? Like, was this edited at all? And there's also a lot of parts where I feel like, okay, my Japanese is not good enough for me to be able to play this game in Japanese. But there's many, like, jokes that I feel were so poorly translated that the only reason I could realize that there was a joke there in the first place is because I can speak a bit of Japanese, right? Where it's like, okay, not enough Japanese to play this game in Japanese, but enough Japanese to know that there was definitely a joke there, and it just completely got lost in translation. Which, again, I don't know what happened, because the demo was fine. Like, the translation on the demo felt fine. But I don't know what happened with the full game. I don't know if they just like ran out of time, or the other thing too is that like I don't know if maybe they got a different team for the demo and the full release, because again, the full release they redid. I think they redid the translation, because the demo was just like the first half of chapter 1. But I think they redid the translation for the full release, because it was definitely things that I remember being there in the demo that weren't there in the full release, in terms of like how certain things were worded. So yeah, I don't know what happened. And also too, like, I feel like when things get lost in translation, I feel like the characters also really suffer for it, you know? Like, there's like one character that I'm like, the moment he opened his mouth in the demo, I was like, yes, I love this guy. And then for some reason in the full release, his personality is just kind of absent. Like, it's very weird. Like, I feel like there's only one character who I felt like I was completely grasping their personality in the translation, and that was like Jasmine, who's like the, you know, the one like aggressive one. Like, I guess she contrasts enough with everybody else that like she stands out. But yeah, like, I don't know. It felt very, I don't know. That's why I left a bad review. It was just like, I love everything else about this. Please fix the translation. Please fix the translation so I can like, because like, I don't know. There was some parts where I like halfway considered just like pulling out a Japanese dictionary and just like trying to like brute force my way through it in Japanese, because I'm like, I almost wonder if that would be a better experience. But I don't know, it's something I haven't seen many people comment on, so I don't know if it's just like, if maybe it's just something I noticed because I play so many like, you know, text heavy games. But yeah, karaoke's Doko, I don't have the energy for that. Did you not see the just chatting? I'm just chatting. I want to save my voice too. I considered doing karaoke, but I also wanted to save my voice for recording stuff for Singing March, which you can find on my Twitter and also Blue Sky. But like, I don't know, Blue Sky is weird for videos. You can only post like a minute long, as opposed to Twitter's like 2.5 minutes long. So I keep having to like shorten things down and cut things out for Blue Sky. And then also for some reason the file size is always too big, so I have to upload them in like 480p. So, I mean, they exist on Blue Sky, but in like a worse format. Not due to me having anything against Blue Sky, but simply due to the technical limitations of Blue Sky. Twitch Doko? I'm only streaming on— this is a YouTube stream! I just said so. Yeah. NiceEggy. Yeah, but I'm a whack, so it's okay. Yeah, Blue Sky is so ew with vids, it's bad. I don't know, because like it's weird when I upload. Because every time I upload a video and it's too big, like, okay, so I will be in my editing software. I will export the video. It will say the video size is like 45 MB. Like, I'm like, okay, good. And then the Blue Sky limit is supposed to be 50. And I'm like, okay, good. This will fit within the Blue Sky limit. But no, for some reason, it seems the Blue Sky is just straight up lying to me, because I upload it and it's like, actually, no, this video is too big. So that's why everything I have to upload to Blue Sky is in like 480p, because like if I upload anything in like any higher quality, it tells me the file size is too big. They have the power to be better than Twitter, but they don't wanna. Just, I don't know, not even make the file size, just like make the video limit longer. So I can post the entire thing instead of having to like awkwardly cut the song somewhere. Yeah. FYI, YouTube seems to have a view counting bug, overly aggressive bot detection. They are detecting the robots. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I'm not seeing any different than usual. What are we at? 11 concurrent viewers. So yeah, that's about pretty normal for an Eggy YouTube stream. That's pretty average. Eggy nay. Are you going to slut? No, I'm a whack. Yeah, what types of content do you like to make the most? Content. Usually I stream on Twitch. Sometimes I do karaoke, not today. Sometimes I do, I don't know. I feel like my stuff is pretty standard VTuber fare. I need to shake it up a little. mostly cozy games and singing. And yapping. Yeah. Yeah. If Blue Sky wasn't that bad with content, even with PNGs, it's so picky I wouldn't use Twitter. What? Yeah, no, I don't know. I keep using Twitter mostly just because, like, until most people move to Blue Sky, I feel like that's where most people are going to be. Yeah, do you draw? Not very well. I pulled up my drawing tablet yesterday, and I drew one thing, and I was like, And any amount of art ability has left my body since the last time I pulled out my tablet. And like, I know that that's normal. If you don't do something for a while, you just kind of lose it. But I was like, huh. Because like, I don't know, early 2022, I did have like a drawing phase. But you know what I think it was? I think it's just because like, I think I drew due to peer pressure. I mean, my drawing tablet is useful. I'm glad I have it. But I feel like I'm like looking back, I'm like, all my friends are artists. All my friends are artists. So I'm like, I'm going to draw too. And then, but then like, I feel like after I got back from Japan, I didn't do that much drawing. Did you say you were awak? I didn't understand what you meant. Awak, it is like awake, but if you chop off that last E for fun, it is we are awake, as opposed to being slep. You know? You can be slep, or you can be awak. Yeah. Twitch/YouTube streams one. When I can figure out how to, because I tried using Restream. I could not figure out how to make Restream work for YouTube. Because again, so Restream kind of, so okay, the first thing is I may have accidentally been like committing Twitch crimes because I don't know what the current rules are around showing the YouTube chat on stream. Because the thing with Restream, which is what I was using, because I don't think my computer has the ability to like send off streams in 2 different directions at once. The thing with Restream is that it combines both your chats, like from both YouTube and Twitch. It combines them both into one chat, which is apparently against Twitch law. Apparently I'm a Twitch criminal, but, you know, they're letting me get away with it. So, yeah, until I can figure that out. Also, too, the thing with Restream as well is that, like, usually for YouTube, I like having a waiting room up. Because, okay, Twitch streaming and YouTube streaming work very differently, right? So, like, Twitch streaming is like, you know, it's made with the assumption that you're going to be live. And I've said this before, YouTube streaming is like, they treat it like it's a YouTube video that hasn't been made yet. So, with Twitch streaming, you can just pick a title for your stream, you know, give it a category, and then hit go live, and like, congratulations, you're live. Whereas Twitch streaming is like, or with YouTube streaming is like, okay, you have to make a waiting room, you got to have like a title and a thumbnail and a description, and then you have to like set it up ahead of time. Or you can just hit go live and like it'll still work, but like a lot of that stuff will be missing, right? And Restream for some reason does not let me connect. Like what I was trying to do was connect like a connect the Restream to like a specific YouTube waiting room that for some reason it just won't do that. So that's why I've been trying to keep them separate and just like occasionally do like alternate between them, because I cannot figure out how to make this thing work for both. At least not in a way that is, you know, satisfactory to the Eggy, you know? Yeah. Would you join a VTubing agency? If it was a good enough one. I don't know. I'm not like, I feel like there would have to be benefit. There would have to be a benefit to it. Like, to join a company. I don't know. I think if it was like a big one, like HoloLive or something, absolutely yes. But like, I don't know if I would join a company just to say that I'm in a company, you know? Twitch has said they will not go after people for merging chats. It's just an extra bonk they tack on you if you break a more serious rule. Ah, okay. So it's like, it's a bonus crime. Yeah, it's a bonus crime. So if I commit bonus crimes. But I don't commit a lot of Twitch crimes. I don't think the only thing that I've ever been, I'm not even bonked, just like muted. I think the only issue I've run into on Twitch is like copyright. But that's it. Everything else I'm just like, you know what? I'm a nice and good Eggy and I do not break the law. I found your channel from your Ave Maria video. Ah, that one was a couple years old. That was like 2023? Yes, I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad you liked it. But yeah, usually I'm not a TOS rule breaker. You have to do something really bad. Yeah, like, because that's the thing is that, like, I'm trying to think of, like, any Twitch rules that I might have broken, and, like, I can't think of anything other than, like, possible copyright violation. Like, and that's, even then, that's mostly when I've done karaoke and when I've, like, sung songs on stream. Because, like, everything else is just like, like, I swear substantially less than other people on Twitch. What else? Anything else? I do not show offensive content. I am not offensive. Like, there is no nudity on the Eggy stream. Like, I'm not, like, skirting the rules with my model. Like, Twitch has no reason to go after me, you know? We're not gonna bother checking for it unless we're already there for something else. Yeah. 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 I mean, plus two, like, I imagine that's probably not a detail that you're gonna see unless you're looking for it, you know? I am highly offended by this egg. Excuse me. Excuse me. We can't see her body, so for all we know, she's naked. I do not sleep naked. I am very pajama. Yeah, when did you go to Japan? Late 2023, sorry, late 2022 and early 2023. So it was like September 2022 to like April of 2023, I think. Yeah, it was like end of September. Yep. So yeah, so it was a little while ago, but I didn't stream much during that time. So yeah. Say so, egg. I mean, I don't think everyone is obligated to be say so, but personally I prefer to be say so, you know? I think it's possible. I don't know. I feel like I see people arguing about this, and I think the main thing is that I think it's possible to believe two things at once, in that, like, it's okay to not be say so, but personally I would much prefer to be say so, you know? Like, I don't look at people who are, like, you know, making dirty jokes and I'm like, ugh, disgusting. But, like, also, like, I'm just like, yes, no, I don't think I would do that. I would not care to do that. It is not for me. You know? It is simply just not for me. But, yeah. I am not edgy, because an egg is round. I'm not edgy. I'm eggy. I'm eggy. Yeah, it's just personal preference. Exactly. Like, again, it's like how, like, like, for instance, I prefer if people don't draw, like, lewd art of me. But it's not because I'm, like, against lewd art, like, as a concept. Like, people can draw what they want. I just feel weird when it's about me. But yeah, like, it's not like I'm, like, totally against it. Yeah. It's rarer to find say-so streamers. Well, the thing is like, okay, I can see if you're somebody trying, like, I feel like it's not necessarily harder to make it as a say-so streamer. Oh, you know what? It has its pros and cons. It has its pros and cons, you know? Like, because on one hand, I feel like, you know, making a lot of dirty jokes and being very loud and sexy and big booby, that will attract a lot of attention very easily. So if that's what you're looking to do, you will probably, you know, it won't not be effective, is what I'm saying. However, you also run into a lot more possibility of, like, things other than viewership getting in the way. So, like, you know, you're probably more likely to get demonetized on YouTube, or to be, you know, banned from Twitch, or, you know, probably more likely to, like, run into trouble when trying to post in some places, or some sponsorships might not take you. Like, that, whereas, like, if you're say-so, you're probably not going to run into that as much, but I find that, you know, it is a bit more of a challenge sometimes to get off the ground, I feel, if that makes sense. Just because, I mean, part of it too might also be specifically, like, an English-speaking VTuber thing, whereas I feel like VTubers here have kind of developed a reputation for being, like, you know, very loud and brash. So I feel like if you don't fall into that, sometimes it does feel a little like, you know, it's an uphill battle, but on the other hand, there's less stuff working against you, I feel. Yeah. I feel like say-so streamers can appeal to a more niche audience. Well, also too, I feel like there is definitely a middle ground. There definitely is a middle ground. I don't think it's like say-so and not say-so. I feel like it's a sliding scale, you know? Like, on one end you might have like, very say-so, like doesn't swear, very inoffensive, like, and then on the other hand you have, like, I don't know, Project Melody. Like, it's like there's a sliding scale, right? And then somewhere in the middle is most VTubers. Like, I imagine, like, someone like Doki Bird or Doobie would probably fall somewhere in the middle, right? Like, maybe Mint would fall a little further towards the say-so side, but, like, not that far towards the say-so side, Like, I feel it's a sliding scale. It's a sliding scale, I think. Like, if you like Wholesome, you might like Hololive. Not so much Face Connect. Yeah, Face Connect, I don't know. They seem like a good company, but also I'm afraid of them. Like, I don't know. I know they ran auditions a while back, and I was, like, considering, but I'm also just like, they're scary. They're scary. Like, maybe I might have my life too much together. Despite everything, I might have my life too much together for Face Connect. I might be too functional for Face Connect. I might be like people, if I joined Face Connect, I feel like people would start watching me and then be disappointed. I feel I'm not failing enough. Like, hold on, I'm just gonna drink some water. I also feel like it's an average or normal, just people who talk like most people do IRL. Yeah, like... Yeah, like, again, most people... Like I said, it's a sliding scale, so, whoops. I imagine most VTubers are just, like, in the middle. Most people are in the middle. Like, some might lean further to one side or the other. Some might lean further to one side or the other depending on the situation. Like, because there's definitely some people who I think, like, can be more say-so or less say-so, just, like, based on, like, who they're collabing with. Like, because, again, adaptability is important, right? So, like, there are some people who definitely, like, if they're collabing with somebody who's, like, more say-so, then they will be... Either they will try and be more say-so to match, or they will be less say-so, so that you have, like, the funny, silly dynamic of, like... scandalous streamer and scandalized streamer, or the other way around. So, like, again, adaptability, but yeah, I feel like most people fall somewhere in the middle. Yeah, it reminds me of my teenage years. I was already say-so boring as I do today. Imagine a say-so teenager. I was a pretty say-so teenager. I think I was a pretty say-so teenager. Like, I didn't even date in high school. Admittedly, I almost dated people, but I never actually did. People tried. There was attempts. They didn't work, but there was attempts. Actually, no, there was... Did you go to university? I did. I didn't date anybody. Well, university, I didn't make that many friends, to be honest. University was kind of weird because I started university a couple years after... Like, I was 2 years behind my friends, like my high school schoolmates, if that makes sense. So, like, I started university 2 years late. So I was 20 when I started university. And it doesn't feel like it would be a big difference, right? Between 18-year-olds and 20-year-olds. But then, I don't know, it felt like there was a very big difference, right? Because, like, when you're 20, right, like, yeah, you're still very young and inexperienced with life, but, like, you're kind of, like... You've been out of high school for a few years, right? High school is not as fresh in your mind as it is for someone who just, like, was a high schooler until about 2 or 3 months ago, So I think for me, it was kind of like trying to talk to people in my class was actually surprisingly difficult because I was like, these are children. They're only 2 years younger than me, but they're children, It's like how I feel like as you get older, age gaps feel smaller. But I feel like 18 to 20-year-old is, like, still enough, like, it's still enough to feel different, Yeah, when you're older, a bit more mellowed out, perhaps. I don't know. I think it's more just, like, because, like, I kind of, like... So what I did when I graduated high school is I went to, like, spa training school for, like, a year. And then it didn't quite work out, but I ended up working for a year, and then I decided to go back to school. So because of that, it was like, okay, so technically I went into university having already experienced some kind of like, post-secondary college education. So there was that, and also I had a year of working. So because of that, it felt like I was like, okay, despite the fact that my job was just kind of like a part-time job, like, it felt like, I kind of felt like I was like, kind of, not more mature, but yeah, maybe a little bit more mature than like the 18-year-olds in my class. Because yeah, when I was 16 in high school, but I was going to bars when I was like 15 because my band was playing bar gigs. My bandmates were older, but still not old enough to drink. Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends. What is drinking age? Oh, you know what it is too, I think, is that like drinking age where I live is 19. So somebody who's just going into their first year of university cannot drink legally, but somebody who's 20 can. So I think maybe that was another difference, is that like, it's like, oh yeah, I am an adult in more ways than you are right now. Yeah. At 18, a literal handful of years can be roughly a quarter of a person's life. Well, it's like, okay, when you're a kid, how like, if you are like 5 years old and you have a sibling who's like 7 years old, that feels like a huge difference, right? Like, because like when you're a kid, I guess your development is happening so fast that like even just like a year or two can make a huge difference in terms of like, capabilities and knowledge and stuff. Whereas as you get older, like, the difference between like a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old is still pretty big, right? But then, and the difference between 18 and 20 feels bigger, but I feel like the older you go, like the difference between someone who's like 42 and someone who's 45 is like negligible, It's negligible. So yeah, that's the that's kind of how it is. But yeah, I feel like when you're starting university, maybe it also kicks in like periods of transition, because I feel like the difference between talking to somebody who's in grade 8 and talking to somebody who's in grade 9 also feels very different, despite the fact that like there's only like a year of difference, right? And I guess it's the same thing for like somebody who is like 18 and someone who's 20, I guess. Or someone who's like in grade 12 and someone who's in first year university, Yeah. Yeah, age gaps feel smaller, except when I come across people in their very early 20s or younger. Oh yeah, I feel like I'm very guilty of this because I'm not that old, but I feel I'm absolutely guilty of talking about people in their early 20s like they are like, oh, they are not like children, but it's like, oh, they are inexperienced, they know nothing of this world. And I'm like, okay, that was me not that long ago. I wasn't that long ago that I was that age. But yeah, again, 21 versus 25 is definitely a big jump, Yeah. Are you Canadian? I am in fact Canadian. I am Canada Egg. I am Canada Egg. That is why I went to university. Because actually, here in Canada, university and college feel like they mean different things in Canada and the States. So in Canada, so you have colleges and you have universities. But usually most people go to university, I would say. So university is like, if you want to get a bachelor, like if you're trying to get a degree, right? You're trying to go for like a bachelor's or a master's or whatnot, you would go to a university. Usually they will have like more academic programs. So if you're looking to study like psychology or, most STEM stuff, or like some kind of like academic field, you go to university. Whereas college is like, I don't know if college is cheaper. I think it might be. But college is usually more practical stuff. So a lot of trades will have college programs, but there's also kind of stuff like computer science usually, like the more practical side of like coding and stuff can be taught in colleges. So yeah, it's like it's a little different. Yeah, being a specialist. But yeah, like colleges usually don't give out degrees. That's the thing. Usually it's for stuff that like it needs qualifications, but not necessarily degrees. So like hairstyling, for instance, that's like another example of something that you might find a course about at a college, right? because it's like here you need a license to be a hairstylist. You need to have the necessary training, but you don't need like a bachelor's in hairstyling, right? If you wanted a bachelor's in something, you would probably, I mean, actually there's some colleges I think that can give out bachelor's, but usually it's more, that's more of a university thing. So yeah, I feel like most students I feel like more people go to university than go to college. But yeah, it's not like one or the other. People will sometimes say it's easier to get into college, but like it really depends on the program, I think. Because again, it also depends on what you want to do. Like for instance, like the college I went to, they had an animation program. I wasn't in the animation program, but they had one. And that was specifically about animation if you wanted to go into animation. But university did not have an animation program, but they had a fine arts program. And I'm sure there's probably classes you could take in animation, but if you wanted to become like specifically an animator, you would probably go to college, right? Whereas if you're like, I want to study like the history of animation and become like a scholar of animation, you would probably go to university, if that makes sense. Yeah. But yeah, what did you study? Did you finish your degree? Yeah, my degree is done. So my field of study was international studies and modern languages, which was largely like poli-sci and IR with like international relations with some. Well, I also had to take classes in French, and then you had to pick a third language. So my third language was Japanese, which is why I was in Japan. So, yeah. It was supposed to be, because the thing is, the program is kind of structured with the assumption that you will go abroad at some point for like at least one semester. But obviously like COVID threw a massive wrench into that. So I did end up getting to go, but it was like at the very last second. Like it was like the final semester. It was the final semester of Eggy school. And that's when I finally got to go to Japan. So yeah, it was kind of, that was that. But yeah, I am done school. I don't think I'll go back to school in the near future. Eggy sister is currently actually doing a master's, but I do not plan to do a master's. I probably could not get into any I could not get into any like master's or PhD programs with the grades I got in my bachelor's, I don't think. I mean, to be fair, a lot of those grades were because, like, the second half of my program happened, like, in a post-2020 world. But, yeah, I did not go in with the idea of, like, I'm gonna get high grades, and then I did not get high grades. So, I mean, I got what I expected. College and university are synonymous as far as I'm concerned. Community college is the cheaper small-scale version to me. Yeah, see, that's the thing in Canada is I think most post-secondary, again, it depends on the program, but most of them cost roughly the same across the board. Like, usually the funding, again, unless you're like an international student, and in which you're paying for stuff in full, or like Canadian students, I believe, are somewhat subsidized, and it results in like most universities cost roughly the same. Hello, EggyTube. Hello, Punk Asian. Also, hello, Pembu, who I saw earlier, but I forgot to say hi to. Hello. So yeah, post-secondary. No, I'm talking like postgraduate. That was what I was looking for. Postgraduate. Like after you finish your bachelor's, like master's and PhD programs. So yeah, in Canada, like some college programs might be cheaper, but some are more expensive. Like when I did like the spa school, like that was at a college. That was like the esthetician program at a college, but that actually cost probably more than my university degree per semester. But that's because the school had to charge us more because, you know, esthetician programs use like a lot more like supplies and resources that have to be restocked compared to like, you know, political science, where everything is just like you type on your laptop. So yeah, because of that, that program was more expensive. So I imagine some trades programs might be a bit more expensive per semester just because they have to account for like the cost of materials. But yeah. Yeah, so here, the idea of like, I guess there are still things that are considered like rich people schools, but I think it has less to do with like the actual cost of tuition, and it has more to do with like the location and the reputation of the school, I think. Like, for instance, if you have a school that's in like a major city where it's expensive to live, it will kind of just by accident end up being a rich person school, just because it, like, you know, if you're coming from out of town, you're gonna have to, like, you know, rent an apartment there and stuff, and it's gonna be expensive. Or like, I don't know, there's some schools that like aren't in big cities but I guess have like a rich person reputation, so rich people keep sending their kids there. I think Queen's University is like that. It has like because like the city it's in is not especially big, but yeah, is there something like Ivies in Canada? Not structurally, I'd say. There's some universities that are known to be more prestigious, but there's not like a distinct group of schools where they're like, these are the ones, these are the fancy ones, these are the top tier. Usually it's more like, I guess there's schools that are known for being top tier, but it's not like there's like an actual list of them, you know? Yeah, schools might simply be selective one way or the other. That too. I guess some schools might be harder to get into. I know University of Toronto is known for being like very difficult to get into, especially in certain programs. I'm trying to think of any other ones. I know Queen's, I don't know if Queen's is hard to get into. I guess it also depends on the program. I think Queen's has like a lot of like rich people alumni who keep sending their kids there because that's where they went. Because yeah, the university I went to, I don't think is like a particularly high ranking one or like one that's known to be difficult to get into. I think Waterloo is another one. That's another one that's kind of, so Waterloo is known for having like a lot of like STEM programs. So like if you're going into like math or like anything computers, Waterloo is probably where you're gonna at least try to get into. But because of that, obviously it's known for being very selective. So I feel like that's another one that's like not a rich people school necessarily, but it's known for being more prestigious. Yeah, it's being hard to get into for CS and engineering. I think I heard the entry average was in the 90s. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know a couple people who went to Waterloo and they had insanely stressful final semesters of high school because of it. And then they probably went to Waterloo and had extremely stressful first semesters of Waterloo. But yeah, it depends on the program. Yeah, probably. Like, again, I feel like schools sometimes are more known for like one specific program than others. Yeah. I don't know how Waterloo's reputation is these days. Well, to be fair, like, most of the people I know who went to Waterloo, unless they're doing like masters and PhDs, have probably already graduated from Waterloo, you know? Yeah, I guess rich Canadians might send their kids to the Ivies. Yeah, I feel like rich Canadians tend to send their kids like abroad, either to the States or to somewhere else, you know? Like, Eggy's sister studied music, and I remember she mentioned when she was looking for schools to do her master's at, she had to like, because the thing is that like there was like a relatively small number of Canadian schools that actually had a program that she like wanted to do and or was qualified to do, because a lot of people for music will either go to the States or they'll go to Europe. Like, Canada just doesn't have as much of that, it seemed. So, yeah, that was kind of that was that. So, yeah, I feel like very rich Canadians probably just send their kids to Europe or to the States. So, do you speak European French or Canadian? Also, what does Cajun sound like by comparison? I haven't heard enough of Cajun French to actually be able to, like, I would definitely notice a difference, but to be able to remember the difference off the top of my head, because you don't hear that a lot in Canada. I feel like I speak somewhere in the middle, and it depends who I'm speaking to. So when you learn French in school, a lot of the resources, like the textbooks and stuff, will be France French. Like they'll be like Paris French, right? But a lot of the listening material, like if the teacher is like, okay, we're gonna put on like a movie, or we're gonna put on like a news clip, it's probably going to be Quebec French. They're probably going to be sourcing that from like French Canadian sources. So you kind of end up somewhere in between. So like I guess if I'm talking to somebody with a strong Quebec accent, I feel like I get more Quebec to match. But if I'm just talking to somebody like and like they don't have a super strong French Canadian accent, I feel like I remain, I feel like my dialect, I feel like there's like a new dialect emerging of like French immersion. I'm just gonna call it like French immersion dialect. And like I can only describe it as like, okay, so obviously you learn French in school as a second language, and the teachers teaching it, some of them are French first language. Like, some of them are native French speakers, but some of them are also people who, you know, studied French for a solid chunk of their life, and, you know, they speak French fluently, but they don't sound like a native speaker. So I feel like there's like this dialect that emerges when you are a person who learned French as a second language, learning from somebody else who learned French as a second language. I feel like that's the dialect that emerges. That's what I end up speaking in. Hello friend, hello baby. There's one Canadian who did masters in my music college and all my years there. I assume he must have gotten a decent scholarship. I mean, to be fair, I feel like, from what my sister has said, like, because my sister did get quite a few scholarships, but it seems that, like, music scholarships, she's like, they tended to be a bit flexible, because sometimes if they couldn't find somebody who qualified, they would pick somebody who's technically, like for instance, she would apply for scholarships for instruments other than her own, because it turns out if they couldn't find anyone qualified, they would just give it to somebody who played, like, you know, they're like, okay, this is technically, like, an instrument, like, this is for somebody who plays, like, clarinet, but sure, a flute is close enough, that's fine. A flute is close enough, we'll give it. So, like, yeah. Does anyone learn Quebec French as a first language? I mean, the people in Quebec do. I don't know if that's what you mean. I don't know if that's what you mean. The people in Quebec definitely do. Would you be willing to do a reaction to Cajun French sometime? Yeah, maybe not now on stream, but, like, because, like, I know that it exists. And I'm sure it would be comprehensible, like, because it's a different dialect of French, right? Like, it's not like it's like a totally new language. It cannot be harder than, what was it? We had a listening exercise in high school that made everybody question if they could actually speak French. Like, basically it had, like, multiple dialects. Obviously it had, like, the regular, like, Paris French one, but then they threw in, like, Belgian French and, like, I think some French dialects from different parts of Africa. And it was one of those things that just, like, it made you question if you could speak French. I guess it's, like, the same experience as, like, English speakers running into somebody with, like, a really, really strong, like, British accent, where you're like, I mean, it sounds like English, but I don't know if I caught, like, what they were actually trying to say. And that's how it felt with French. Yeah. The guy at my school was a pianist, though, and we had plenty of those. Okay, another weird quirk that my family learned about music programs through my sister is that, like, so the thing is that, you know how, like, with most programs, right? Like, if you're going into, say, like, history or something, they'll be like, okay, we can accept this many people to the program, right? And, you know, it's this many history majors. Whereas with music, it's a bit more competitive, especially if you play a popular instrument, because they'll be like, okay, because the program needs to be sort of balanced, so you don't end up with, like, oops, all pianists. It's like, okay, we can accept this many people playing, like, the saxophone. We can accept this many people playing the trumpet. So, like, it's actually can be more competitive for some programs and for some instruments, just because, like, if you want to get into the program, it's not just that they can only accept so many people, it's that they can only accept so many people who do a specific thing, right? So that was something interesting that we learned. Yeah. I think my French second language teacher was scared to teach us pronunciation, so I can read French decently, and that's about it. Well, to be fair, I think pronunciation, when it comes to learning a language, I actually think pronunciation is, like, the bottom of the list. Like, I mean, I guess it depends what you're learning a language for. Like, if you're learning the language because you want to be able to, like, I don't know. Like, if you're learning it, let's say, to be, like, a phone customer service employee, right? Maybe pronunciation would be better. Like, it'd be good to learn, but I feel like grammar and sentence structure, like, I feel like the first step before you can pronounce anything correctly is to be able to actually, you know, say it correctly. So I feel like actually being able to build the sentence rather than to pronounce the sentence is more important. They don't spend a lot of time on pronunciation here either, I don't think. Like, I feel like the people who have the better French pronunciation are the people who either started earlier or the people who were, like, super dedicated to pronouncing everything correctly, you know? Like, again, you do have some people who are just like, yes, if I'm going to do this, I want to do it 100% right. But, yeah, it's kind of, it's a thing, yeah. Getting pronunciation really helps blending in. I mean, yeah, but, like, again, I'd rather talk to somebody who speaks English with a heavy accent but can put a sentence together than somebody who, like, sounds fluent but if it weren't for all the grammatical errors, you know? I feel like being able to actually make, plus also too, like reading and writing are important. If anything, I think reading and writing are just like more important than being able to actually speak the language. Because like, yeah, speaking the language, it's like, okay, you can speak, you can ask people for help, but also too, like, if you can speak a language but you can't read or write it very well, then I feel like that actually puts you at a like more of a disadvantage. Maybe I'm just speaking because like the two languages I've learned are French and Japanese, and like learning to read Japanese is like a completely different task than learning to speak it. But I feel like, yeah, if you can read, you can be more independent. Like if you can read really well and speak just a little bit, you can be more independent than if it's the other way around, you know? How fluent is your Japanese? Not very. I mean, it's intermediate, is what I tell people. I'm somewhere between like JLPT N4 and N3. I'm kind of at that weird spot where like I could pass N4 with my eyes closed, but I would probably struggle a bit on N3, and I may or may not pass. So yeah, I'm intermediate, is what I keep saying. There's an English media that grew up in France, so he got perfect pronunciation, but he can't speak French 100%, so store employees often think he's just stupid. Oh, I definitely met people like that in Japan. There were people I knew who could, like, either they had Japanese parents or they had, like, they were, like, part Japanese, and they could speak Japanese really well, but they couldn't read or write any of it because, like, again, and I know I have a lot of friends like that who can speak Chinese like that too, where they can speak it really well, but they never learn to read or write it. So it's like the weird thing of like, okay, I am fluent, but also completely illiterate kind of thing, you know, where it's like, yeah, like, but again, learning to read or write it. I guess if you already speak it, it already helps because you're not like trying to learn all the new vocabulary, but yeah. There's a small movement of Japanese people, learners, that you only need to read and not write kanji because it's all on computers anyway. Yeah, that's understandable. Personally, I like writing kanji because it's fun. Like, that's my, like, I'm a kanji enjoyer, you know? Memorizing things, it's not always fun, but like when you can like write something down in kanji, I feel like that's fun. It's fun and it's enjoyable, you know? It is fun and enjoyable. But I know that's not everybody. Personally, I don't agree, because I've definitely seen people who are like, abolish kanji, and I'm like, no, I think they're more useful than you give it credit for. They're more useful than you give it credit for. But like, I can see the argument for like, you don't really need to learn to write kanji. Because like, if you're in a situation where you have to write stuff down, you can just like fall back on like the kana, but yeah. It's fun to write kanji. Relaxing with a tea in the morning, practicing kanji. Yeah, well, it's like, I think about my kanji course that I took when I was in Japan. And it was like, it was stressful because it was definitely the most memorization I've ever had to do for a class. But also, like, I admit I really enjoyed the parts where I had to just, like, practice writing the kanji. Like, I really enjoyed that. Like, where, you know, when you have those exercises in the worksheets where you had to, like, you know, fill it out a certain amount of times. I liked that. That was fun. I enjoyed it. If you learn how to write the radicals, and writing kanji is probably doable faster than you think. Well, yeah, because, like, the thing is that, like, even Japanese people don't know how to write many kanji characters nowadays because they just use their phones. Well, it's like that with English with spelling, right? Like, there's probably at least one or two words that, you know, even if you're a native English speaker, you can't remember how to spell off the top of your head because you've been relying on auto. Like, for me, it's the word necessary. I don't remember how to spell the word necessary. I remember when I was in school, when I had to, like, write essays, if the word necessary came up, I would just try and, like, figure out something else to say. I would just be like, it would be like, doing this would not be necessary, and I would be like, I'd forget how to spell the word necessary, and I couldn't like get a spell checker because this was a handwritten exam, so I just write needed. I just try to find like a synonym. I try to like write my way around using the word necessary if I wasn't on a computer. It's always double letters. Yeah. Or also too, sometimes different places will like spell things a little differently, and usually most professors won't like bonk you for that, but Every so often you'll have somebody who's like, actually, we are in Canada, so we spell color with a U. But yeah, English loanwords sleeping in via katakana is fun to watch. Or you have like, what's it called? Like the NiceEggy, where it's like stuff makes its way into Japanese, but it doesn't mean the same thing as it does in English. Or like you get stuff that's like based in English words, like pasakon, where it's like, okay, that's based on English words, but like if you ask an English speaker, like, hey, can I use your pasakon? Like, they will not know what you're talking about. You know what I think it is? I think it's because of the way we shorten words. Like, I feel like in English, usually we tend to go with, like, initials, whereas Japanese will just, like, take syllables, right? Which makes sense for the language, right? Because you know how in English, like, personal computer became PC, and then in Japanese, personal computer became pasakon. So I guess it's just, like, the way we shorten things down. Yeah. I hate the word frustrating. I want the R removed. Well, it's like... there are things I feel like if you don't remember it early on, then you will just, like I feel like I would probably forget that there's an R in February. Not at the end, but, like, there's a second R in February. I would forget that if the teachers I had as a kid didn't, like, drill that into us, you know? Yeah, Canadian English. It's the halfway point between, British English and American English. Like, we spell most things the same as American, except for stuff like color and honor and a few other words where we put the U in there. Or I think sometimes center is spelled the French way. So, like, instead of, like, C-E-N-T-E-R, it's, like, C-E-N-T-R-E. Although sometimes it's also, like... Sometimes those are different words. Like, does American English have the thing where theater spelled with an E-R at the end and theater with an R-E at the end mean different things? Because I remember, like, theater, I was told that, like, theater with an ER is, like, the physical place, right? Like, the actual theater, like, the place, the building with the stage in it. Whereas, like, theater with an RE is, like, the art of theater. Like, you know, theater as, like, an art, as a thing to watch. Like, you watch the theater, but you go to the theater. Like, you watch the theater RE, but you go to the theater ER, you know? You study theater RE, but you might do so in a theater ER, you know? Yeah, Oxford University Press does have a Canadian English dictionary, which makes sense, I guess. Well, also, too, like, when you boot up a new computer, when you boot up a new device, when they ask for language, they have Canadian English as an option. Yeah. My local mall does the center spelling. The other thing in Canada, I think, as well, is that it's not just that center is that with the RE, it's not just that that's Canadian spelling. I think a lot of places do that, too, so that they don't have to print everything in French. Because, like, centre, like, center RE is how center is actually spelled in French, like centre. So I think a lot of places will just, like, they'll use that to keep consistency with both English and French, you know? So it kind of makes sense. But, yeah, Canadian English does exist. It's real. It's real. Yogurt moment. Wasn't it, like, in French, it's, like, technically yaourt? It's not like yogurt, it's like yaourt. On mange du yaourt. But yeah. Yogurt. Yogurt. But, yeah. I think... seeing stuff in French. I remember a few years ago when Bodega came to visit us in Canada, and all the other Americans, like Bodega and Kaji, like, they were all found it very funny that the stuff, like, because, like, in Canada, right, legally you're required, like, let's say you're selling a product, you have packaging, the information on the packaging has to be written both in English and in French. So, like, you know, like the name of the product, the ingredients and stuff. And they found this very funny. Or even, like, stuff like road signs sometimes would have like both English and French. Bodega kept making a joke about so there was a sign on the highway at one point that was like an anti-drunk driving sign. So it's like in English it says something like, it's like alcohol kills, like, don't drive drunk. And in French it says l'alcool tue, which again means the same thing, you know, like alcohol kills, right? And Bodega just looked at it and she was like, all cool Tuesday. All cool Tuesday. I'm like, I don't know, I guess that just never crossed my mind because I can like read the French and understand what it says, but it's like, yeah, all cool Tuesday. Did you learn game theory in your poli-sci degree? We did not. We did not. Well, maybe a little bit, but like it was not an important part. If we did, then I do not. It was early on, and I do not remember it. Yeah. Like, I don't know. Looking back, I'm like, I mean, I guess it's probably the same for everybody, but I feel like it's always surprising how little of university you remember. Like, in terms of, like, actual learning, right? Like, I feel like I remember things that happened while I was there in terms of, like, oh yeah, like, we did this in this class. Or I'll remember specific things the teacher said, but if you ask me to remember, like, anything I've ever written an essay about, I'm like, my brain will draw a blank. Like, yeah, I can just, like, pull up my old essays from, like, they're still in my Google Drive. But, like, it's not really gonna, like, is this gonna jog my memory? I'm not sure. Like, and also, too, with my essays, it's like, okay, I can find the essay. Will I remember what grade I actually got on it? No. So, like, I can look through my old stuff, but I will not be able to judge the quality because unless there's something I remember getting a good grade or a bad grade on, then, like, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, if you want your students to remember, you need to repeat it 4 times. Well, I just think also, too, just, like... So the first 2 years, like I said, I started 2018, so it was, like, first 2 years was, like, fairly normal, and then 2020 happened. So I feel like, but I also think that it was also kind of a thing where like the first 2 years of university are different from the second 2 years of university in terms of what you learn in class, because first 2 years you're like learning the basics, and then second 2 years you're becoming like more, you know, you're getting more in depth and stuff. So like I definitely remember my first 2 years a lot better than my second 2 years, like with the exception of like the stuff I did in Japan because that was different enough from everything else. But like in terms of like what did I learn in 2021, and the answer is possibly nothing. Possibly nothing. Yeah, you could be a high school French teacher. I don't know. You need actually at least where I live, I don't know if it's the same for the rest of Canada, because I believe that's a provincial thing. But, like, you have to do a separate thing. Like, it takes longer to become a teacher of something. So, like, obviously to become a teacher of something, like, let's say you're becoming, like, you know, a science teacher. You need to have a degree in some kind of science. And then, on top of that, you have to do another few years of teacher's college. So it actually takes a lot longer. I'd probably have to go back to school if I wanted to become a French teacher. Like, was poli-sci and international relations the only course you considered taking at the start? Well, okay, here's the thing. I wanted to do something with languages, and this was the only course that was designed with the assumption that you would be learning more than one language, if that makes sense. Like, I wanted to do something, like, languages was my main thing. The poli-sci was kind of, like, incidental. I'm like, yeah, this is interesting enough. I can live with that. But I was mostly there. I was more there for the languages, I think. That was my original goal, was learn to speak languages. Which technically I did, I guess. I mean, I already knew how to speak French when I started, but I guess I can speak more French now. Like, I don't know. Do I remember things from my French classes? A little bit. But I don't know. My French teacher, I don't know. I think I've complained about this French teacher on stream before. In my first few years of university, I had a French teacher who was very, like, very strict and got angry very easily. And I had him twice. I had him once for, like, a class on, like, French, it was, like, discussing current issues in French. And he was okay then, because, again, the class was mostly discussion, right? So, like, the teacher was not talking as much, right? Like, it was mostly the students talking. But then I had him again for like a grammar class, and I have no idea what was going on there. Like, even the homework he gave, like my mom who speaks French as a first language was having trouble figuring out the homework. Because like, for instance, we'd have exercises where it's like, okay, conjugate these verbs in a specific way. But like, you had to conjugate it in a way that did not make sense with the rest of the sentence. But you still had to do it that way anyway. And again, even my mom, like she speaks French as a first language, and like she's done translation works and stuff before. So it's like, she's like looking at it. She's like, I don't know what they want from you. What does he want from you? I don't understand what you're supposed to put down here. Like, I mean, I know the answer, but the answer doesn't make sense. So yeah, that was a difficult course. That was a very rough course. But yeah, and then I had another French teacher later it was the last semester before I went to Japan. And I was like, I felt bad because he was like, it was another grammar class, but he was like a master's student, and he was like, he very much understood that what he was teaching was not very interesting. Like, he's like, yes, I'm aware that this is a grammar class, and he was really trying his best to make things as interesting and fun as possible. And like, again, he was a master's student, so he was kind of like on the younger side, and I felt really bad because like, I was just like so tired and like incredibly checked out from school at that point that I was just like, he was giving everything and I was giving nothing. And I was one of those things where I'm like, you know when you had to do like the professor review and it's like, I had a terrible time in your course, but it's like, it could not be less your fault. It is absolutely not your fault. I am just so tired. Yeah, you can go back to school and study some law and become a paralegal. Why do the eggplants want me to be too educated? They're trying to be more educated. Why are you trying to convince me to be educated? I'm already educated. If anything, I need to be more worked. I need to be more worked. I feel like I've hit the desired amount of education. Everyone wants to make me more educated. I guess you could have taken a language course and learned the other language on the side. Yeah, the thing is, I'm just not very good with self-study, I found. Because, like, there's certain things I feel like self-study works for. Like, for instance, when I've been learning Japanese, like, reading, you can practice reading on your own, right? Like, vocabulary, you can, download a deck of flashcards and do your Anki reps. But I feel like when it comes to, like, actually learning like grammatical structures, it's like, no, I need somebody to actually like explain this to me. And I can't just be like a video. It needs to be somebody who I can ask if I have questions, right? I feel like when I've tried to learn Japanese outside of a school setting, it just doesn't work very well, just because like self-study, here's the thing, I think the thing is like, maybe if I followed like an online course or a specific like guidelines or curriculum, because like I feel like people are like, oh, learn what you're interested in. But the problem is that like, if I don't know the language, I don't know what the priorities are, Like, is it more important to learn this grammar point first or this grammar point? Like, I feel like I do need some structure that somebody else has come up with. Somebody more knowledgeable than me has come up with, Yeah. What do you do for work now? Currently nothing. Currently what I do for work is look for work. I have a job interview in a few weeks. But yes, currently I had a job last year, and I think eggplants are familiar with this. People have been there for a while are familiar. It had like a commute that was like basically 2 hours each way. So I was spending almost 4 hours a day on a bus. So I did not stay at that job. They did not have a remote option for me. So I did not stay there. And they were very understanding about it. But yeah, so since then I've been searching for a job, and I've realized I have the ability to be a bit pickier this time around. Because last time I was just trying to get a job as quickly as possible, and then that's how I ended up with a 2-hour commute. So this time I'm like, you know what? I will wait. I'm willing. I have enough money to be unemployed for a little longer, so that I have the ability to, be a bit choosier about where I work, Yeah. If you took a Japanese paid course, you would study for that, right? Yeah, like I said, it's not a matter of discipline necessarily. It's a matter of like, it doesn't matter how hard you work if you don't know what direction you're going in, right? So again, like I said, vocabulary, easy. You can drill yourself on vocabulary. You can drill yourself on kanji. You can drill yourself on certain things. But there's certain things that I cannot just drill myself on, right? Like, there are things where you can't just know them, you have to understand them. Like, you know, that's a lot of like grammar and sentence structure stuff. And that, I think it's very important that somebody else like explains it to you rather than you try to learn it from a book or you try to learn it from flashcards. There are just things you cannot learn from flashcards. And there's also things that, like, especially as you get like deeper into a language, just like cultural things, where it's like, okay, especially since, you know, language is like an ever-changing thing, there might be things in a textbook that are outdated. There might be things in a textbook that just like don't work. Like, yeah. So because of that, it's like, yeah. I've tried to look into taking some Japanese courses since I've come back. I'm just like struggling to find a place that has a placement test. Because like I'm at a weird place where like I'm intermediate, but intermediate is such a weird place to be, you know? Because intermediate can mean anything. So I feel like I'm trying to find a course that has like a placement test I can take so I can actually know where I'm supposed to go. Because I'm like, okay, I'm definitely not beginner anymore. I'm certainly not beginner. I don't know if I count as advanced, you know? I don't know if I'm advanced. I don't know where I'm supposed to go, and a lot of these places don't seem to have placement tests. They just like, I guess they assume that if you're starting with them, then you'll continue with them, right? But it's like, no, I've learned Japanese from other sources, but I wish to continue, but I don't know where I'm at anymore, you know? And I guess also probably depends on like what textbook series and stuff that they're using too. Because like, my Japanese courses in Canada that I took at Canada University, those used Japanese for busy people, although it looked like the department was looking to switch to Genki, because I know some people who took it after me and they use Genki. And then my university in Japan, we used Minna no Nihongo. Minna no Nihongo. And then, yeah, but I know there's like, there are many series of textbooks, and every single textbook structures the lessons a little differently. So it's like, okay, you're just kind of like trying to like piece together and find the holes between textbook series, you know? Yeah. But yeah, what type of work do you want to do in the future? I don't really know. The thing with work, to me, is that like, I like doing creative things. If I could do creative things for a living, that would be fun. But also, I don't expect to be able to do that. Like, I don't expect to be able to do that. So for me, like, when I look for jobs, it's like, I'm trying to look for something that I can tolerate, you know? I am very much somebody who's like, okay, I'm looking for something that I can tolerate, and that will give me enough money to, you know, live and do all the other stuff I like, and that will, you know, allow me enough time to, you know, have hobbies. That's pretty much my ask for when it comes to jobs, right? Like, mostly I've been looking at like administrative stuff. One thing I realized with my previous job, because it was at a very corporate company, if that makes sense, like a very dry corporate job. And I realized I'm like, okay, I think I need to work somewhere. I've mostly been looking at like government jobs and nonprofit jobs, because I'm like, I think I need to work somewhere that like has a point other than just make money, you know? Like, you know, whether or not that they succeed at that point is actually irrelevant to me. It just needs to have a reason to exist other than just profit, you know? Because I feel like when you work for something where, because like very much the job I was working before, like we were very much we were the bother customers for more money department very much. So like after a while, it's like, technically I was doing customer service, but like I was very much being the bearer of bad news for a living. And it was like, after a while, it's just like, you know what? What is the gain of this? Because like, I'm not happy. The customer's not happy. Like, technically we're making profit, but like, I'm not seeing any of it. Like, is my manager even seeing any of it? I don't think anyone's seeing any of this. This doesn't benefit anybody, you know? You can watch Japanese news to help get more advanced. I'm past the point because, like, again, I'm in that weird space where NHK easy news is too easy, but NHK regular news is too difficult. Like I said, intermediate is the worst place to be. It is the worst place to be. It's like in Katamari when you're like not big enough to pick up things, but you're big enough to keep getting stuck in between buildings. That's where I'm at with my Japanese learning. That's where I'm at with my Japanese learning. Yeah. Jobs that are more fun and have more purpose can afford to pay less, assuming they get more applicants. I mean, it depends what you mean by fun. It depends what you mean by fun, because I don't think the jobs I'm looking into are necessarily fun. Like, they are probably going to be boring in many of the same ways that a corporate job is boring, but the main difference is that, like, there is some benefit and endpoint to this aside from just, you know, make big money. Make big money for somebody else that you don't really see, you know? Yeah, you need to live in Japan for a year. I mean, I know there are ways you can go back. Like, there are, like, study programs you can do. I think there's, like, you can get a student visa if you go specifically for studying Japanese as well. Because, like, again, I feel like going with a student visa, because when I've seen people talk about, like, the visa process in Japan, I get the impression, I feel like when I went as a student, like, with a student visa, it felt very, not easy mode, but, like, I feel like when you go with a student visa, the school is supposed to take care of all the hard part, right? Like, you give the school your information, and then the school submits your information to whatever ministry or you know, governmental organization that handles this stuff. And they say, yes, this is a student, she is coming to our school. And then, you know, you don't really have to do anything, right? You just have to go to the embassy and, you know, get them to put the fancy sticker in your passport, you know? But yeah. I think a lot of optometry organizations are nonprofit. You might want to look into that. But I don't know if you meant that as a pun or not. Yeah. The kind of thing that there are working visa for a year for people under 30. Oh yeah, there's working holiday visas. I know about those. The working holiday, I don't know. I know some people who have done it, and it doesn't sound bad, but it sounds very scary. To me, it sounds very scary. Because the thing with working holiday visas is that, like, they will issue you the working holiday visa. You have to figure out how to find the job yourself. And you have to figure out everything else yourself. So, like, apartments, because that was the thing when I went, right? Like my school figured out the school visa. They had people around to help me with, you know, stuff like bank accounts and, you know, paying bills and stuff, like, to help you figure out how to do that. And then the building I was staying in, like, I didn't have to hunt for an apartment. You had that option if you wanted to, but most people would just stay in the school's dorm because, you know, it's easy and you have, like, a guaranteed spot. Whereas, like, you can, like, I feel like with working visas, it's like, okay, a lot of that infrastructure isn't in place. You have to figure everything out yourself. But also, a lot of stuff is short term, right? Like, the people I talked to who did working visas, usually they did it to travel, or like working holiday visas. They did it to kind of travel across the country, right? So they'd be like, okay, you'll work at this, like, ski lodge in, you know, Hokkaido for a bit, for a couple months, and then you'll probably go somewhere else and you'll work there for a couple months, and then you'll, you know, go work at, like, a cafe in Tokyo for a couple months. So, like, it's very, like, if I'm gonna go there, I feel like I'd like a bit more stability. Because I know some people compare it with doing, like, something like, you know, like the JET program, right, where you go and teach English. But the thing is with JET is that, like, obviously there's a lot of downsides to it, but also at least it's stable, right? Like, you know, you are assigned to a school and you usually stay there for the entire time that you're hired there, right? Or if they do reassign you, then, you know, if the school, like, shuts down or something, you will get, like, reassigned. But usually that reassignment will also be more or less permanent, right? Like, it's not like working holiday where you're, like, basically just kind of nomadically moving around. Because to me, I don't know, the lack of stability is what kind of scares me, you know? Yeah. Lots of Japanese tourists in Whitehorse, Yukon. Yukon? Interesting. I feel like most of the people I talked to in Japan who had been to Canada had mostly been to BC, which makes sense because, like, BC is probably the closest in Canada you can be to Japan. Most of them had been to, like, Vancouver and stuff. There was a few people as well who had been to Alberta, like, who had been to go see the mountains, which, in my mind, I'm like, doesn't Japan have mountains? Like, don't you guys have, like, big mountains at home? But I guess if you want to see different mountains, you know. But, yeah. Yeah, Japan extending English to younger students was fun for JET teachers. Yeah, well, I think it's like, I don't know what the assignment ratios are of like elementary school to middle school to high school, like of how many get assigned to each. Because I imagine there's probably less need for them in high school and probably more need for them in elementary schools. But yeah, again, it has its upsides and its downsides, but it's like, okay, at least it's, you know, relatively stable. It's relatively stable. Like you have your job there, you have your assignment, and unless, you know, there's problems, then you are probably going to stay there, right? They wouldn't leave you completely alone if you asked for advice, would they? Though I guess working holiday thing is a bit different than JET. Yeah, well, the thing is working holiday is that, like, I'm sure there's people that you can call for help. But again, you have to figure out your own apartments, like your own place to stay. You have to figure out your own jobs. Again, there's like job boards that you can look at. Like, there will even be job boards for jobs that are specifically looking to hire foreigners. Because there will be, like, some things, like, for instance, like the example I used of, like, a ski lodge in Hokkaido. That was, like, that was a real example that somebody had told me about. Because, like, there are places that, like, especially for tourism that specifically cater to, like, English-speaking clientele, right? So, like I said, for like a ski lodge, they might get a lot of customers from like Australia or from like Southeast Asia because it's a place with snow that's like relatively close to those other places. So, because of that, it like they will specifically be looking for like staff who can speak, you know, English. If anything, English might be more important than Japanese for that kind of job, right? But for other jobs, it's like if you can't speak Japanese, you might be in for a tough time. Which, again, I think for working holiday visas, being able to speak Japanese is not like a requirement. But there are probably certain things that would be very difficult to do if you can't, you know? Your options might be a bit more limited. But yeah, they go to see the Northern Lights. Ah, okay, I guess that makes sense. That makes sense. Like, I remember a while back, wasn't there that, like, one, like, there was, like, a Canada tourism ad that was, like, anime. I think it was made by some of the same staff members who have worked on, like, Makoto Shinkai projects, like Your Name and stuff. I think this was, like, 2017 or 2018. There was, like, yeah, like, a anime Canada tourism ad. And I feel like the Northern Lights were definitely in there. I'm trying to remember where they went, like, what they showed. I think they probably showed, like, Niagara Falls. I think they went skating in Toronto. I don't know. I guess it's always weird seeing a tourism ad for your own country because I feel like everybody looks at their own country and they're like, I don't know, there's not really anything to do here. And then it's like you talk to people who are from other countries who have visited and they're like, what are you talking about? There's so much here. They'd like N1 plus if possible. I think, what do you mean N1? Have you ever considered, I don't want to just be like, you don't know what you're talking about, but N1 is the most advanced level of JLPT. Most jobs don't even ask for N1. Most jobs don't even ask for N1. Yeah. The South Pole anime? No. It was like a specific like TV ad. It was like a 30, 45 second TV ad. It wasn't a full anime, it was just a television advertisement. Yeah. Yeah, work for XYZ Engineering. Yeah, I don't know, I guess maybe it's just because it's animated and you don't really see that here. Like, I feel like here, like, unless something is specifically being advertised to children, or they're trying to go for like, ooh, wacky, zany, like, you don't see a lot of stuff that's anime. Or animated at all, like, here. I feel like it's relatively rare. I heard some native Japanese people, like, better skills than needed for N1. No, you don't understand. Most jobs in Japan only ask for N2. Like, N1 is so advanced. If you had N1, they might find it nice if the person has it. I feel like if you had N1, they would be pleasantly surprised but confused. But no, N1 is like not necessary for most things. Like most jobs will just, even translation jobs will often only ask for N2. Like usually N1, I'm not even sure what the point of N1 is because it's so advanced. Maybe if you're trying to go into like something like really advanced with very specialized language, like if you're trying to go into like maybe like law or like mathematics, like if you're studying like physics or something, maybe medicine, they might ask for N1. But like other than that, at this point N1 is basically just a flex. It's like the Japanese bonus level. It's the JLPT bonus level. It's like if you, yeah, I've heard that N2 is basically the only one that matters. Not sure about 3 or 4. Well, the thing is the different levels are more or less just to show where you are. Like the same test exists for English and it exists for other languages. Like I've done one for French called DELF, and that one I'm like a DELF B2, which I believe is the second highest level. But basically it's a standardized test in the way that, like, you know, if somebody asks, you know, how well can you speak French? I can say DELF B2, and if they're familiar with DELF, they will have like some idea of what that entails, you know? So I know some people who just like won't take JLPT until they're good enough for N2 because they're like, there's no point. But like, I don't know, at least being able to pinpoint where you are is probably helpful, you know? Yeah. C1 is level. Yeah, C1 I think is the highest level of French. So like B2, I think, because I know some people who took B1 because they didn't feel prepared for B2 because we took them at the end of high school. So, but I took B2. So that's the second highest level. So like the next C1 is like you are fluent. That is C1. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like I probably could have taken C1. I just don't know if I would have done as well because I did really well on B2. Like I got higher than average score on B2. So like I wonder if like if I took C1, I would maybe just like barely pass. I feel like maybe that's where I was at. Did you say you were N3, N2? More like N4, N3. Again, N3 is a weird place to be. It's a weird place to be. So like with JLPT, so N5 is like the very simple like, you know, kore wa ringo desu, watashi wa egi desu. Like, just like the most simple, basic, like, base level. And then N1 is like, you know, you are better at Japanese than most Japanese people. So, yeah. So N3 is kind of smack in the middle. So, yeah. I think, again, I'm at the weird place where it's like, based on practice tests that I've done, I could probably pass N4 very easily, but I would definitely struggle to pass N3. I probably would not pass N3. I'm very much like a little bit short of N3. Yeah, I know my uni keeps lowering the English test score standards to get more rich international students. It had notable consequences because teachers are usually nice enough to slow down for ESL. Yeah. Now that C1 or C2 are considered mother tongue level, the idea is more that you can enroll in a university course in that language skill-wise. Yeah. Well, it's like, I mean, comparing yourself to a native speaker is usually always just probably the wrong way to go about it. But like, it's like, okay, you could function. You could move to a country where nobody speaks English and everybody only speaks that language and you would, you know, thrive kind of thing, you know? But yeah. I think the other thing too, though, when it comes to like English standards, I feel is that it's not only one thing. Again, something I noticed both as with my experience of like seeing international students in my university in Canada and also being the international student in Japan is that like even if you know the language, I feel like there's a lot of things in academia specifically that you don't always get taught in language courses because they're not useful outside of academia, right? So for instance, things like, you know, how do you format an essay in Japanese? Or for like students who are learning English, like how do you format an essay in English? Because it turns out that like formatting for stuff actually, like obviously there's some things like, you know, paragraphs exist in most languages, but like there's a lot of things that are like surprisingly like they will be different in different languages. Like, you know, what verb tense do you use? How formal should you sound in an essay in like whatever language? So I feel like that was something that actually threw me off, where I'm like, yeah, this is not going to be useful outside of an academic context, right? Like, once I finish university, unless I get a job that requires me to write more essays, I probably wouldn't have to think about this. But because I am in university, and I do have to write essays, I do have to think about this. And so would every other international student coming to learn English. So... yeah. Could be a bad egg and go Japanese guy hunting. I would not do that. That would not end well. I don't think it ends well for anybody who attempts to do that. To, like, find a Japanese partner and get married. I don't think it does not work out well for anybody. I am not taking that risk. I am smarter than that. If I move to Japan, it will be on my own merits, you know? I will apply my own skill. But, yeah. I don't know what I'll do from here. Again, I will cross that bridge when I get there, is the conclusion I've come to. Like, I'm not in any hurry. I have been fairly relaxed in the past few weeks. Because again, I'm applying for jobs, but I've like, kind of like, had it set in my mind of like, okay, this will take a while, and that is okay. It'll take a while, and that's okay. It's okay. Like, I don't need to, I'm not in any hurry, you know? Once I start running out of money, I will be more of a hurry, but I don't have a lot of, like, again, I'm living with family, so I don't have a ton of expenses right now. So, like, yes, economically, I can afford to, you know, take my time. Like, again. Because, again, last year, I've learned my lesson. Last year, I was in a hurry to get a job, and I ended up with something I did not like. So, I've learned my lesson. Lesson learned. Quality over speed. Quality over speed. Because I remember I was thinking last year. Because last year, again, I moved to NiceEggy City, right? And I was like, okay, I need to find a job as quickly as possible. And I remember, like, looking back, I was only, like, completely unemployed for about 3 weeks. Like, it felt a lot longer in my mind. Because I didn't know how long it would take. And I guess because I was, you know, applying to so many things and spending so much time in, like, interviews and stuff. But, like, I guess, well, to be fair, I was also technically not, I didn't start working until the end of March. But, like, I got here, like, mid-February last year. And I was, like, technically the company that hired me, I, like, signed on at the beginning, like, early March. But I didn't actually start work until, like, much later in the month. So, like, basically I was like, okay, I only spent, like, I mean, I guess it was, like, about a month before I started working, but, like, I only spent, like, 2 weeks actually being, like, it was only, like, 2 or 3 weeks of being actually unemployed. You were in a hurry to get out of the island. Well, I don't know, because I guess at the time I was in the mindset of, like, I need to get a job or everyone is going to be mad at me. Because, I mean, to be fair, I guess when you live with your parents and that seems to be, like, the only thing they think about? Like, you know, when you, like, I don't know, it's one of those things of, like, you know, maybe older people just don't understand what the current job market is like. But, like, sometimes it felt when I would talk to my parents, the only thing they would ask about is, like, do you have a job yet? And I'm like, I'm working on it. Like, this does not happen overnight. So, yeah, I guess I was in that mindset of, like, I am worthless if I am not employed. But I don't know. Now I feel like I better understand my worth outside of being employed. Like, it's important to be employed. Well, you move to. Yeah, that too. Because, yeah, again, I was new city, but I don't know. I guess it's more just, like, it's important to be employed, but it's not, like, the only thing that's important. And, like, there are worse things you can be as a person than unemployed, you know? Because especially now in, like, the current job market, like I've known people who have been unemployed for, like, a very long time, and it's not like anything that they are doing wrong, right? It's just that, like, yeah, there just aren't a lot of jobs right now, you know? Parents usually don't search for new jobs. Here, this isn't going to be a hot take, I don't think. I feel like most people will agree with me. But I think that if you are over the age of 40, unless your job is like employment counselor, like unless your job involves like helping people to find jobs, or unless you have been unemployed and have had to job hunt within the last 2 or 3 years, I think it should be illegal and punishable by law for you to give other people job hunting advice. Like, because I feel like, again, a lot of people don't understand, like, exactly what the issues are, right? Like, you can be applying for hundreds of jobs and nobody will call you back. Or you can be, you know, you can be going through, like, 3-4 stages of interviews and still not get the job, right? Or, like, yeah, like, a lot of people don't necessarily, like, if you're fine with your current job, a lot of people don't. And it's also very common as well, like, to leave jobs frequently nowadays, especially if you're younger, right? Like, most people switch jobs every few years for something that, like, either pays better or works better with, you know, their lifestyle. Yeah. Some people switch every 5 years. I remember reading somewhere, wasn't it recently, it's like 4 years is like the average, I think, for like a worker, at least in North America, I guess. I know it's different in other places, but like, yeah, just like the fact that like it's common to come and go through jobs, or the fact that like, you know, staying there longer does not mean that you're necessarily going to reap rewards. Like raises aren't as much of a thing. Like, you don't really get a raise for staying longer. You either get promoted into a higher paying position, or you kind of, you know, you go somewhere else that pays you more, right? You use your experience and you use that to grab onto something else. Or yeah, just the fact that like everyone says they're hiring, but nobody actually hires, you know? Like, is anybody actually going to look at any of the resumes I'm sending out? Who knows? Who knows? Like, I don't know, at least in my experience of applying to government jobs and nonprofit jobs is that you're more likely, I think, to get like an actual human, at least in Canada. You're more likely to get an actual human looking at your resume, I feel. Like, I've gotten more, not even like there were still rejections, but it's like, okay, this was rejected, but at least like a real person looked at it at some point, right? Like, this wasn't like a system auto reject, you know? Yeah. It's harder to get a promotion than to find a better position elsewhere. Well, the thing is, I think also too, like, I feel like, again, this was my experience at previous Eggy company, but like, I feel like a lot of places don't promote because they'd rather hire. So let's say you're working, right? Let's say you're working a job and you have a manager, and then like the manager like quits or gets transferred to somewhere else and they need a new manager. I feel like they're more likely to try and hire a manager from outside rather than to like promote well, I don't know. I guess I did see one employee that did get promoted to management. But like, I feel like it's more likely that they're gonna like bring in somebody new than try and promote from within. Despite the fact that like the second option feels like it would make more sense because this person already works here and they're probably already familiar with the processes. But I feel like a lot of a lot of it does feel like they're more likely to try and bring in people from the outside. Yeah. Engineers are complaining HR filters a lot of applicants needlessly. I've heard about that happening in tech a lot. Just because, like, I guess there's a big disconnect between the people who are hiring, like HR, and the people who actually, you know, manage and do the job. Where I guess it's like HR does not always have, like, the necessary knowledge to know what is a good candidate. But, yeah, most parents do not understand instant application rejection because you failed a personality assessment. Oh, yeah, I think, like, again, I think they just don't understand that, like, the standards are higher and the way they filter through people is like, again, you cannot go, like, we had a few people actually when I was working there. Like, our office was not a public facing office, right? Like, this was entirely like we had signs on the door that was like, this is not a public facing office. If you need customer service, please like go here or call this number, right? But we still had people walking into our building with resumes asking if we were hiring and asking to speak with manager and stuff. And it's like, the manager is busy. He has things he needs to do. He has deadlines. Like, if you try to talk to a real person, like, it's like, no, we're all too busy for this. We're all too busy for this. So it's like, like, again, you're throwing stuff at a computer until you manage to, like, hit the keywords the computer likes, and then maybe somebody will ask you to come in for an interview. Although I feel like interviews feel a lot more arbitrary, I guess. Because it's like, okay, now that you got a human's eyes on you, is that human actually going to like you? And I feel like, I don't know, I feel like that's where there is a level of arbitrariness, I feel. Because there's jobs that I thought I was going to get, but then I guess, you know, one of the interviewers was like, I don't like her vibe, and then I didn't get the job, right? Like, it happens. And I mean, I guess that's some of it is just like, you know, figuring out who will, like, fit in well, and, like, who might, you know, not. But, yeah. My favorite was when I attend job fairs and receive explicit instructions not to accept any CVs or resumes. Yeah, we had, again, when people showed up to our building, we had to tell people to go, like, online. Oh my god, I had such a weird experience once. There was this, like, lady who came in. I think she was with her daughter. Like, her daughter was, like, definitely an adult. Like, it wasn't, like, her kid daughter. But she came in, and she, like... So my desk is, like, relatively close to the door, right? To the front door. So she came in, I was just, like, working, and she tapped on my shoulder, and she was like, oh, do you have jobs? Can I speak to a manager? Can I speak to someone in charge of hiring? And I was, like, go online, and all this time I'm like, who let you into the building? There's, like, a passcode log. I'm like, how did she get into the building? Who opened the door for you? Because, again, we weren't really supposed to, like... Again, the system for the office was not terribly great, because there was a lot of times where it's like, people would say they work here, so I'd open the door for them, and I just had to take their word for it, because they didn't have, like, an ID card or anything, because our company didn't issue those. So it was like, they were just kind of... I was just like, who let you in? How did you get into the building? So, yeah. Online interview platforms should be standardized so people don't have to re-enter so much information. Feels like they try to just keep legal liabilities if she followed somebody. That's what I'm thinking. Either that, like, either she followed somebody else in, or, because again, if somebody says they want to get into the building, a lot of the time we just have to take their word for it. Because, like, unless they very clearly, like, for instance, unless they very clearly had, like, a delivery, like, there's a FedEx truck outside and they had, you know, something for us, then, or, but, like, a lot of the time, yeah, if it's someone's like, oh, I'm here to meet with this person, you just have to take their word for it, which is not a very good, probably not the most secure way of going about things, but I don't know, they like, I felt embarrassed every time, too, when it was somebody who works there, but works in a department that I wasn't, like, interacting with a lot, so I didn't recognize them. And then they would say, I work here. And I was like, your company didn't have a front desk? We should have. People were asking for it. So that, because that was the other thing. I feel like my department, because we were the closest to the door, we kind of just ended up being, like, by default, just, like, we were the reception. Like, my phone, when people called the phone at the front, because it was, like, a phone in, like, the front, like, entrance, that they would say, like, call this number to be let in. That was the phone that went to my desk. Like, again, I was just, like, the default receptionist. Which made it all the more embarrassing when they were asking for somebody who I did not know, because I did not work in the department with them, and I barely interacted with them. And it's like, we're looking for Jeff, and I'm like... I'd have to go into the office, and I'm like, who's Jeff? Who's Jeff? Yeah. I had a significant impact on a hiring committee once. I think my input might have stopped someone from being hired once. They could do the job, but they couldn't do anything I wasn't already doing. Wait, so, like, were they trying to split your job in two or something? Like... Because, yeah, I'm trying to think what's happening with my job. Wonder how they're doing. Because, like, when I left, somebody had started back in the summer. And I think they were about to hire somebody else new. Which is probably why my managers were like not too like broken up. They're like, yeah, it's fine. They didn't seem too broken up about me leaving. That's probably because they were about to hire somebody else. So yeah. And it also meant me leaving meant that they actually had the correct number of desks now, so they could both the other guy and the new person would be able to, both get a desk, which is nice. So yeah. The job that you left, they can probably match. Oh, yeah, there was, again, like I said, there was somebody else that they were in the process of hiring somebody, like, as I was leaving. So, I never met them because, again, I think I left before they started. But, yeah. I took over for someone who resigned, and they were looking for a replacement. We didn't need a replacement, but the person who resigned was really good. So I gave myself 2 jobs for a small raise. I mean, I guess if you're okay with it. If you're okay with more work. Maybe they hired that person to replace you. No. They were already in the process of hiring, of like interviewing and hiring before I had put in my 2 weeks. They had been looking for someone for a while. They'd been looking for someone for a while. It just so happened that they got hired around the time I left. So, because I think there had also been a guy, because they were always also looking to replace somebody. There had been a guy who had been there for quite a while, who retired like a couple months before I left. He had retired, so again, they were already looking for someone to replace him. And then I guess they probably need somebody to replace me as well. So yeah, again, it is what it is. Like, I remember putting in my 2 weeks and my managers were like, understandable. Understandable. Like, it was one of those things where I feel like my manager was like, he was happy to see me go, not in the way of like, oh, thank God, now I don't have to work with her anymore, but in the way of like, oh, thank God, she doesn't have to keep doing this to herself anymore. Like, yeah. So they're gonna replace you anyways? No, like I said, I mean, I guess they were technically gonna replace me anyways, but again, they were hiring before they had even any thought that I was leaving, Like, they had been hiring for, like, a solid month before I had put in my 2 weeks. Before they even knew I was thinking about putting in my 2 weeks. They were already looking. Sorry, watch your time. But, yeah. I'm not hiring a person with too high standards. Just like, nobody is good enough. You cannot get a job. Well, I don't know. I think the weird thing with job hunting, too, is that, like, the skills that make you good at job hunting do not necessarily make you good at jobs. If that makes sense, right? Because, like, what do you have to be good at with job hunting, right? It's, like, a lot of, like, being able to respond to emails on time, I guess. Being able to, like, speak clearly and confidently in interviews. But, like, unless your job involves sending a lot of emails and speaking to people confidently, like, that doesn't... I mean, I guess sometimes some jobs will have, like, written tests or some kind of testing. I know I had to do an interview for a job recently that had that kind of thing. But, yeah, like, it's not... Because you're good at interviews does not mean you're going to be good at the job. And I feel like that's always the weird thing for me. It feels like a completely different set of skills. Like, I imagine there's probably people in their position who are, like, extremely incompetent, but they were really, really good at interviews, and that's how they got it, I'm sure those people exist. But, yeah. 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 She's finally free. I like how seasonal temp workers finally got the courage to leave after being seasonal temp for 5 years. What? They can do that? That's nonsense. Nonsense. If they were already looking before you put in your 2 weeks, it sounds like they were trying to replace you. I assure you, again, I was working there and you were not. I can assure you they were not. Because again, like, they did not know I was going to put in my 2 weeks. And somebody else had recently left. Somebody else, like, again, a couple months before. So if anything, they were trying to replace the guy who had just left, right? They were not trying to replace the person who was still here and that they did not plan on firing, you know? That it is what it is, you know? Like, it was very much the kind of place where I think you would have to do quite a bit to get fired. Like, I think there had been somebody fired from the department before, but they were, like, the kind of person who was very, like, argumentative and, like, constantly picking fights, apparently, from what I heard. Or just, like, unnecessary conflict. So I feel like, yeah, it would have to be pretty extreme to actually, like, straight up be fired. Rather than, like, you know, slap on the wrist being told not to do that again. I mean, technically, I don't know. They did tell me, because I think there have been a couple times, because I was always up so early and, like, on a bus for 4 hours a day, I would, like, fall asleep at my desk. And they're like, yeah, technically HR was like, yeah, that should have, like, resulted in, like, a lot more disciplinary action. But apparently because, like, again, they knew my circumstances, so they were like, yeah, we'll let this one slide. But, yeah. Yeah. Again, I don't go around assuming that everything is malicious. Because I feel like if you do that, you kind of invent conflicts that don't exist. Like, I feel like I've definitely seen that happen, where people go into every situation assuming that it's like, this is some kind of battle, and it's like, this battle only exists inside your brain. You are fighting against an enemy that is literally just a normal person doing normal person things, you know? Like, I don't know, I guess I see that more on the internet. Or like, if you go into every situation assuming it's a battle, then it's like, congratulations, you have invented new conflict. There was no conflict, but then you invented it. You went and invented it. Like... But... yeah. How was office politics? There weren't a lot of it. Again, it wasn't like... Usually when there was arguments, it wasn't between people within my department, it was between people in other departments. Like, we were not... Again, we were just kind of off doing our own thing. You leave it to, I don't know, the other managers and people doing other stuff. Leave that to leave the argument to them, you know? Leave the arguing to them. And they absolutely would argue. But, you know, it had nothing to do with me. It is not of my concern. It is not my job to worry about that. Hold on, I'm just gonna stretch a bit. There we go. Oh, I stretched too hard. I hurt my neck now. I stretch my neck weird. I stretched too hard. Eggplants, I stretched too hard. I did too much stretching. I did too much stretching. Arguing like the mayor's office in Majora's Mask. Bro is like, an argument. I know what those are. I've seen those in video games. There we go. Ugh. I'm old now. I have to think about, like, my neck. I have to think about my neck and my knees. Get hot pack. No, it's not that bad. It'll go away in a second. It's just like, you know, when you, like, move your neck weird and it just, like, gets sore for a second? It doesn't require medical attention. I just like to complain about it. But... yeah. Yeah, I have to think about my neck and my knees. I think I talked about this a little while ago. My knee has been, like, popping lately sometimes when I'm, like, climbing stairs and stuff. Aren't you, like, 25? Yeah, right about that. More or less, yeah. But, yeah, I don't know, I guess... Because, like, I don't know, my knee, I would hear, like, weird, like, popping and cracking noises, and I, like, looked it up, and apparently, like, it's normal for that to happen. Like it doesn't mean anything bad, like unless there's like other like pain or stiffness there, then like you're probably fine. But it's just like, oh, I didn't have to think about that before and I have to think about that now. Oh. Ever had a sprain? Not that I know of, no. Like, I don't know, as a kid, because like I was not a terribly active child. I was definitely more of like a book child than I was sports child. So I didn't actually have that many injuries as a kid. Like, I think I fell off my bike a couple of times, but usually that would result in like, you know, like bruises and cuts rather than in like strains and sprains. Like, or yeah, like all the people I know who broke bones as a kid, they all did sports. They didn't necessarily break their bone doing sports necessarily, but like it was all the people who were like, oh, I play soccer, or like I do gymnastics, or I do, you know, skiing or whatever. Like I was not a sports child, and therefore I did not break any bones. And to this day, I don't think I've broken any bones. If your knee is clicking, take calcium. I've had that problem before. Ah, okay. Yeah, but yeah. I mean, I'm exercising more, which I'm assuming will also probably solve that a little bit, maybe. Soccer is fun. Look, okay, here's the thing. I have a personal grudge against soccer because when I was in elementary school, we had a soccer field, right? We had like soccer nets on the schoolyard. And soccer became the game that the teachers had us play whenever they didn't know what else to do with us. Whenever they're like, okay, we need to take the class outside, but we need to have some kind of like organized game going. Otherwise the kids are just gonna be like running around being rambunctious. So we need to have some kind of organized game. So we're gonna play soccer. And it was always soccer, and I was not good at soccer, and I did not like soccer. So now like, but then I guess when you're playing soccer all the time, it's like, okay, your worth as a person is now judged by how good you are at soccer. At least for this, like, you know, 30-minute recess that we're having. So yeah, I don't like playing soccer for that specific reason of just like, this was the game that teachers had us play in school when like they didn't know what else to play and it was too complicated to set anything else up. Yeah, I skateboarded as a kid, but my only broken bow was from rolling my ankle on a trampoline. But again, it's I mean, I guess to be fair, if you're an active kid, like if you do one sport, you're more likely to do a second sport, right? Because again, like I said, it's not that everybody who I knew who did sports as a kid broke a bone. They didn't necessarily break the bone doing that specific sport, but they would break a bone, you know? Yeah, the stopping and running in soccer can tear muscles easily. Yeah, they did that with too, having us play soccer. Yeah, like, I mean, again, it's a very easy game in the sense that, like, you know, you have goalies, but everybody else is just kind of everywhere else. Because you're, you know, you're like 8 and you haven't quite learned, you know, technique and strategy yet. And yeah, you pretty much just need the soccer field, which your schoolyard probably already has. And other than that, you just need a ball. It's literally just like kick the ball into the net. Like, it's not terribly complicated. It doesn't take a lot of setup. But yeah, I think because of that, we played it so much. We played it so much. And I think the other thing with soccer too is that like soccer, more so than other games, I feel like has the tendency to get more physical. Like, especially compared to stuff like, you know, like if you have like kickball or something. Like, again, I guess it's not supposed to be a contact sport, but it very much becomes a contact sport if you have kids in your class who feel strongly enough about it. Because I'm trying to think like what I actually liked as a kid in terms of games. I liked tag games, like we did Manhunt. Like, honestly, like when I was a kid, we did Manhunt on the playground, which was like, again, that was fun, but that was also like organized by the kids themselves. Like, that wasn't like the teachers organizing it. That was like, our whole class got together at recess and we're like, okay, this person is starting as it. And then everybody is given like the countdown to run as far away as they can. So yeah, that was fun. But I think the thing with Manhunt is that like, it was very much a game of skill as much as it was a game of like speed. Because like, yeah, you could escape being tagged by, you know, sprinting as fast as possible, or you could also get really good at finding hiding spots. or get really good at blending in with other groups of people so that people don't notice that you're there. So yeah, it was very much like a game of skill as much as it was like a physical activity. In gym class, I liked dodgeball. I liked dodgeball. I liked, it wasn't flag football, but they just called it flags. I guess it had similar rules to flag football, except that it was just like tagging, like it wasn't like you weren't being like tackled. Or like you were like tearing off somebody else's like flag belt thing. That I actually liked. Actually, there was a version of dodgeball I really liked that was called King's Court. And I remember I liked it because it meant that even if you got hit, you could still participate. Because that was the thing with dodgeball, right? Is that like you start the game, if you get hit even once, and it's like, okay, you're just sitting out for the rest of the game. Like, this is no longer a physical activity, right? King's Court, it was like, so basically it was like, okay, it was like dodgeball in the sense you had two sides, but there was, if you got hit, you wouldn't go and sit on the outside, you would head to the back. Like, it's almost like the second, so it's like two sides, and then each side had like two parts to it. So there was the front where like the actual team for that side would be, but then there was like this like jail space at the back. So basically for King's Court, how it would work is that the goal was to get the entire other team to jail on your side, right? But basically, like, if you got hit with a ball from somebody from the opposite team that was coming from their side, you would go to their jail. When you're in jail, the goal was to basically hit somebody with a ball from behind. So if you hit somebody from behind, then you would get to escape from jail. So basically it meant that like even if you got hit, you were not out, you could still like participate. And it also had the additional challenge of like, okay, you gotta watch for balls coming from the front, but you also gotta watch for balls coming from the back, right? So that was, I remember King's Court, I enjoyed it. Yeah. Our favorite playground game was the Flying Shoe Club, where we tried to kick our shoes off as far as possible. I don't know, maybe this was like more of a girl thing, but we had our gymnastics phase where like, the thing was that everybody learns to do a cartwheel. That was the thing for a while. Like just everybody gets really into doing cartwheels. I feel like that's like a necessary, not even necessary. I wonder how this like, we need to do studies on this. Like, does this transcend culture? Like, is it like an integral part of female socialization that everybody has a phase where we all get really, really into cartwheels? Like, not even like taking gymnastics classes, but specifically doing like cartwheels and handstands. I guess because those are the two easiest, right? Because you don't need like a ton of momentum to make either work compared to like a handspring or something or a somersault. But like, I feel like maybe this is specifically a girl's thing, but like the cartwheel phase that you have when you are approximately like 7 to 9 years old. Sometimes starting younger, sometimes starting older. But like, yeah. I feel like that's just like, we need studies on this. I need to see if this like transcends culture. Like, the boys learn to do backflips, but that's only at higher athletic levels. Well, the thing is, again, like, I feel like gymnastics, I guess when I was a kid, like, gymnastics was very much kind of a girly sport. Not like super girly, but you know how like, as opposed to like something like soccer where it's like, here are people in jerseys, but like gymnastics is like, okay, it's a sport, it takes a lot of like training and a lot of strength to be able to like pull any of this off. However, it's also a sport, I guess figure skating is also kind of in that category where it's like, okay, it's a sport where you get to wear a pretty leotard and, you know, makeup, and you know, there's like a performance element just as much as there is like the actual sports element. So I think that probably made it more appealing to girls because it kind of almost gets thrown into like the dance category, like the same category as like dance and figure skating, where it's like this is dance but with like extra steps, you know? Yeah, I was definitely aware of the girls learning cartwheels near me. Okay, yeah. But yeah. Maybe I'll have to do like a super informal survey. Just go on Twitter and be like, you know, where are you from? Did you have a cartwheels phase as a kid? And how old were you when it happened? Again, I need to find out if this is like somewhat universal. Yeah. Not that cartwheels are easy. I mean, they're comparatively easy compared to like backflips, because you're not exactly airborne, right? Like, yeah, you're like your legs are in the air and you need a certain amount of momentum to make that work, but like your body never fully leaves the ground, right? Your hands are still there. Same thing with handstands, right? Like your body never fully leaves the ground. Like it's not like a backflip, right? I think the other thing too I found with handstands, I know a lot of people learn to do handstands against the wall, but always found that really scary. Because the thing with doing handstands against the walls, you have to be able to like accurately gauge the distance between yourself and the wall, and I always found that really difficult as a kid. I was always scared that like if I tried to do a handstand against a wall, I would like dive in to do the handstand and I would like bang my head on the wall. I was always scared that was going to happen because I'm like, I guess especially when you're a kid, you're still trying to figure out what size you actually are. Like your body is growing pretty fast, so you're like, how big am I actually? So yeah, I was always scared to actually do them against the wall. I always found it easier to just do it like, freely, rather than, because at least like if you do it in the middle of the room, you don't have to like think about if you're gonna hit your head on the wall, right? But yeah, that was definitely a thing. I'm trying to think of like other phases that my grade had when I was in school in terms of like what we played, because obviously there was soccer, there was kickball, which is pretty much just like baseball but with your feet. My school had basketball nets, but they were not very well placed. Some people did play basketball, but I was not one of those people. It was mostly, I think, the grade below us that were more into basketball. I feel like my class was not that into basketball. I think the other thing is that like the placement of the basketball nets was also just like not very good. Because like I remember the basketball nets. So our basketball court, so there was like a net on either side, right? But one side was facing towards the school, right? And the other side was facing towards a field. And I think they ended up taking one of the basketball nets out, because what would happen a lot of the time is that like if they were throwing it towards the school, it was fine, because like again, the worst that happens is that it would like bounce off a wall, right? But I think they had to take out the one that was like towards the field, because what would happen is somebody would go to like shoot on the net, and if they missed, the ball would like land in the field and like hit some unfortunate person that happened to be walking around there. So I think they ended up taking it out actually. Yeah, 2 out of 5 children I know had significant injuries from falling in the last year. My friend's kid got stitches last week. I mean, my sister, when she was younger, she got stitches on her forehead because she, like, fell when, like, she slipped when getting off the school bus. So, like, yeah, I mean, she didn't really do much sports either, but, like, that's still an injury. She didn't break anything, though. She didn't break anything. She needed stitches. I'm trying to think of what else do we have? Obviously, in the winter, there was always, like, the snow fort phases. Is there anything else? Yeah, I'm trying to think. There was also different games that we played at summer camp versus what we played at school. Because, like, there's definitely games where you need a certain amount of time to be set aside to do it. And if you try to do it in, like, within school, it just, like, doesn't work. Or especially games that require more materials. There was a game I remember playing at summer camp when I was a kid. Did Eggy leave bed yet? You know what? I'll leave bed right now, okay? Look at me. 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 I'm getting out of bed. Look. I'm out of bed now. I'm out of bed now. Good morning, Zully. I'm out of bed. Look at me being out of bed. I'm out of bed. I'm fully awake. I'm fully awake. But yeah, I remember there was a game. I don't remember what it was called. I feel like every camp I went to called it something different. But basically, everybody would have a popsicle stick. And they would have, like, you know, a set of markers, like, you know, just like a full rainbow, right, of markers. And they would hide the markers, like the counselors before the game started would, like, go and hide the markers in different places. And basically the goal was to run around, find all the markers. Every time you found a marker, you would have to put your put your like a mark of that color on your little popsicle stick. And you would, so yeah, basically the goal was to get all the colors. Find all the markers, get all the colors. There was also people, though, who were running around with black markers. So if they were, like, it worked on a tag system, so, like, if they tagged you, then basically they would go in to your popsicle stick and put, like, a black mark over one of your colors, which then, like, negated it. So that meant that, yeah, you would have to go back and find that marker again. So yeah, basically, again, the goal was to be the first person, I guess, to get all the colors. Yeah. Still in pajamas. Look, nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. Yeah, COVID probably doesn't help the kids nowadays, even if they were less mobile to begin with, depending on how walkable their neighborhood is and indoor activities with computer games and smartphones. Again, it's been a while. The last time I think I was, like, working with kids in any professional capacity was, like, 2019. Like, I don't think I've done anything child-related since 2020. I'm a little scared, because, again, I worked at summer camps in 2019. And even then, it was getting rougher. I feel like 2016 was like the last normal year, I feel. That was like the last year that children were normal. And it's all been downhill from there, but I don't know how to say that in a way that doesn't sound like it's the kids' fault, because it's not. Like, you know, I can't believe these children had the audacity to be born after, 2009 or something. But, I feel like that was like the last time that I was like, yes, I feel like I understand children and how to work with children. Everything after that feels like it's gotten significantly more complicated. And maybe it's just I've gotten older and I've forgotten what it's like to be a child, and that has made it harder to work with children. But also I was working with people who were much older than me and still felt like they understood children. So, like, I don't know. Like, as somebody who has not worked with children for a while, it's probably not my job to try and, like, diagnose what is wrong with children. Different pressures. I think it's a mix of things. So, it's like I said, like, 2016 felt like the last year where children were normal. So I think it's a mix of things. I think higher expectations of behavior. I think, again, part of it too was the individual camp I went to. What they used to do during the day for some camps was the kids would go to the pool. Like, we would walk to a nearby pool and, like, go swimming. And I feel like the pool worked really well, because if you have a lot of kids with a lot of energy, it's a very quick and easy way to tire them out. So it felt like swimming would, like, kind of balance out everyone's energy, right? And then in, like, 2017 or 2018, I think they were like, you know what? We're not going swimming anymore. It's too much liability. It's too much work to take the kids to the pool. But the thing is that the venue for the camp was not, like, it didn't have a ton of space for running around. So basically it felt like everything was like a powder keg, where it's like, or like it felt like pressure was always building throughout the week. Because, like, again, if you had a lot of kids with a lot of energy, you're like, okay, they might be running around now, but we'll go swimming in the afternoon, and then after that they'll be a bit more calm, right? They'll be a little more tired out. Whereas, like, when you don't go swimming and you don't have really any other way for kids with a lot of energy to get that energy out, then it's like, okay, this is just like, everything just builds until it explodes. So I think that might have been part of it, which, again, that was like specific to my specific camp that I was working at. But I'm trying to think what happened in 2017. So that was part of it, I think. I definitely think as well, and again, this was pre-2020, so I can only assume that it's probably gotten worse in some ways and better in some ways, but we were dealing with a lot more kids with, like, I guess, mental health issues. And the thing with that is that, like, I guess the thing is that we were not always informed beforehand by the parents, because sometimes it would be mental health issues that, like, only affect kids in certain situations, right? They're like, okay, like, this person, like, you have this kid, they're usually fine in most situations, but maybe if they have to, speak in front of a crowd, then they get super panicky. Or, like, they're fine in most situations, but, this being in this specific situation might make them anxious. And again, parents might not bring that up, when they're, signing their kids up. So yeah, we kind of just end up getting like, panic attack jump scare where, it's, and like, again, I didn't feel qualified because that's the thing is that like I knew first aid, but first aid did not cover like mental health crises. So like, again, a lot of it was like counselors, we kind of felt like we had to like learn as we go. I felt like the people who are best at working in those situations were people who either had personal experience with it or who like, had, were close people they were close with who had experienced it. And I felt very out of my element, right? Like, so I think in some ways it's probably gotten worse because I can't imagine that, I can't imagine the past few years have been good for children. But on the other hand, I feel like now that there's more awareness of it, I feel like it might have gotten better in some ways just because now we can, like, we know what to expect, I think. Like, it was something that I don't remember running into before, like, 2018 or 2019. But then suddenly we were dealing with it, like, all the time. But also, again, if anybody in the chat is a parent who may be sending their kid to day camp in the near future, please fill out the health form. Please fill out the health form. Honestly, I think the thing is that the way our health forms were formatted is that there was kind of the implication that parents only had to fill them out if their kid had health issues. Because like parents whose kids had like diagnosed health issues, they would always fill them out. But I think there was either cases where like for instance, like especially for younger kids who were not quite old enough to be diagnosed with anything yet, what would happen is that like their parents would drop off their kids at camp. They would fill out the health form to be like, no problems. And then the kid would just have like a bajillion behavioral issues. And then we bring this up to the parent. And the parent's like, oh yeah, by the way, like, because it's like, okay, he hasn't been formally diagnosed with anything yet, but like, the doctors and psychologists say that there's a possibility he has this, and this. And this was like a situation that kept coming up, right? And it's like one of those things where it's like, I guess the health form doesn't really have a space for that of like, like the gray area, I guess, of diagnosis where it's like, we're not certain, but like, we're reasonably certain. So yeah. Mental health issues are not health issues. Yeah, there's a lot of parents, I think, who saw it that way too. Where they're like, yeah, we'd get a lot of like times where we'd have like, again, a kid would be having some kind of mental health crisis at summer camp or at day camp, and then we call the parents and they're like, oh yeah, by the way, I think also too, I think a lot of parents, if the kids are getting a lot of support at school, I think some parents tend to kind of take that for granted or kind of forget. Because there was definitely some cases where the parents, we got some like, oh, by the way, kind of situations, but it was situations where like the parents, like the kids were getting a lot of help at school. And so they were doing fine when they would go to school. But, summer camp is a very different environment than school, and it doesn't have the same supports if you don't ask for them. And again, the environment's a little less structured. So yeah, there was some cases where like the parents are like, oh yeah, we probably should have mentioned that. And we're like, yeah? Yeah? Yeah. 150 word character limit, please. Yeah. But yeah, that was one issue. But also too, like, as well, there was another form, and it was mostly specifically for kids with disabilities, like autism and such. But I think everyone should have filled it out. I think every parent should have to fill this out. Because there's a form for, again, kids with disabilities, mostly like cognitive or behavioral disabilities, that would be like, here are the things he likes. Here are the things he's interested in. Here are the things that she doesn't like. These are the things that she's afraid of. These are situations that might, stress her out. These are maybe some like triggers for her anxiety, for panic attacks, right? I think every parent should have to fill those out regardless of whether or not their kid has a disability. Because I feel like that's valuable information to know about every single kid, right? Like, because again, we only have these kids for like a week, right? It's not like at school where, the teacher is with these kids for, months and months and months, and they get to know them very well, right? Like, again, we have like 1 week. So if there's any information that you think will be relevant within that 1 week, regardless of like, if like you think it's a problem or not, you should put it on there. We should be informed. Like, we have never had problems with having too much information. You can never have too much information in these situations, I think. Oh yeah, it was like 10 years ago. One of my students ran out of the room crying. I had no idea how to handle it. I don't think I was harsh, but I must have done something wrong. Well, I mean, sometimes, I don't know. Speaking as a kid who cried a lot, sometimes it's not so much the harshness of what was said, but sometimes it's more just like, you know, when somebody presses a specific button, like when somebody just like accidentally locks on to your one insecurity and like fires at, like unintentionally just like fires at full force towards like your one weak spot. Sometimes I feel like that happens. Like if you have something, because again, there are comments I've gotten in the past that like especially when I was younger, that have like stuck with me, or that have like some of them were from teachers, but like a lot of them were also just from like friends. Like again, people who didn't like, probably didn't mean anything like super harmful, or like they probably weren't thinking at the time, but it just kind of like, you know, stuck with me, you know? And I always worry about doing that for other people. I'm like, what if I say something about somebody and it just like, I've accidentally like found the one super weak spot and they're just gonna be thinking about this for the rest of their life, you know? Because that's the other thing too as well, is the camps I was working at were, they were like arts and theater and music camps. So like they were like, you know, general artsiness kind of camps. And as somebody who does like theater and who does like music, I wanted the kids to have a good experience with it, right? And I feel like I would end up putting a lot of pressure on myself, because in my mind I'm like, okay, what if I try to teach them to sing and they have a bad experience with singing and then they just never want to sing again? Because like I've definitely talked to people who have had a bad experience, like they're like, oh, I had a bad like math teacher, or I had a bad like French teacher, and now I never want to engage with any of those topics ever again. And I'm like, I don't want to be that person for anybody, right? I don't want to be the reason why somebody refuses to learn to sing, or the reason why somebody hates, you know, theater. Like, yeah. So that was one of those things where it's like, I mean, it was also me stressing myself out, but I don't think I could go back to working at summer camps. Also too, I was way better at working with older kids than younger kids, because like people complain about like attention spans and stuff, but here's the thing, no matter what, the older kids are always going to have a bigger attention span than the younger kids. Because I remember the younger kids, like, you have to be constantly moving from one thing to another. Like you might have a game that like older kids will be entertained by for like, you know, half an hour or like 40 minutes, right? But younger kids, it's like, you will maybe be able to figure that out. You'll be able to keep them together in this game for about 15 minutes tops before they're going to get tired of it and want to move on to something else. So I found it a lot harder. I guess I just didn't have that level of like speed and like on the spot thinking to be able to really effectively work with younger kids. I felt like I did better with the older kids, because it's like, okay, they can read and they have bigger attention spans. So yeah. Yeah, I guess the comments that didn't stick with you didn't hit. Yeah, I mean, I guess. Like, you probably get like a bajillion comments on yourself in a lifetime and you only remember some of them. But like, I don't know. Because like, I don't know, it happens as well. It happens both in real life and on the internet, right? Because there's things I've seen people say about me, like online or in my chat, where I'm like, oh, that's gonna hit very hard. But then that's also happened to me in real life. Like, it's just like, I feel like it's just like, whether people meant offense or not, it's just like, you know, it's a part of human communication that just inevitably is gonna happen, you know? Sorry, Einstein had a bad math teacher. No special relativity for you. Well, I don't know. I think about that. Like, I didn't take science after grade 10 because I had such a bad experience with grade 10 science that I was like, this is no longer like required, so I'm just not gonna do grade 11 science. Or, yeah. My education classes did affirm that working with younger kids takes special talent, especially before 7 to 8. I think it's like, it's not just talent, because again, I worked with people who were like kindergarten teachers, right? I worked with people who were like preschool or like early childhood workers, and like, again, they understood the job. They understood what it took to like keep a group of, you know, 5-year-olds together, and like, as well as like understanding what is normal 5-year-old behavior and what is like an actual problem. Because yeah, sometimes I felt like, and again, I feel like I've been on both sides of this, both as a kid and as an adult, of like, you know, when you like work with older kids and then you kind of get used to like what older kids are capable of, and then you get put into a group of younger kids and you're like, you have to like completely readjust your expectations of what can be done. So yeah, I feel like that was, again, the people who are good at working with 5-year-olds are really good at working with 5-year-olds. I think the other thing too that I also felt was that like, usually at camps, they would put the younger counselors with the younger kids. So like if you were like, you know, 21 or under, you were way more likely to get put with the younger kids, probably just because like, if you have a 16-year-old who's in charge of a group of 12-year-olds, sometimes it's like, okay, the age gap is not big enough to feel like an authority figure here. But yeah, I feel like with that, I was just like, I felt like it should have been the other way around. Because I feel like the older kids were easier to work with, and the younger kids were more difficult to work with. I felt like I needed more experience to be able to work with the younger kids versus the older kids, right? So yeah, that was yeah, I work with 3 other teachers for a kindergarten after school program. It was still very difficult for all of us. Yeah, it's like, plus I think as well, like, I feel like preschool and kindergarten is also probably an especially difficult hurdle, because like older kids, right? Like unless you're teaching like a group of kids who have all been homeschooled, like older kids, they have been in school for a few years, right? They know the routines. They have, you know, some idea of what's expected of them, I feel. Whereas like younger kids, again, especially if they haven't been in school that long, like chances are it's going to be like what they're used to is going to be so heavily dependent on like what their parents, like how their parents live, you know? And I feel like that will vary a lot by household. So I feel like with older kids, there's less room for that variation, but with younger kids is like, again, the expectations are kind of all over on the part of the kids, because like, again, what are they used to doing at home? Well, it's going to be completely different for everybody, right? Yeah, like 30 kids. Okay, I think 30 kids of any age is also just an insane number. Yeah, could possibly pick up on how to work with younger kids too in time, depending on the environment. Well, again, I think it was also just like, because again, I had other people who were my age or younger at the time who were just really good at working with 5-year-olds. I think I just don't have the talent to work with 5-year-olds. I think I just don't have the talent for it. Whatever talent that is, I think I just lack it. I just lack it. I think my other problem is that, like, I was a very well-behaved child. Like, I didn't know how to work with, like, children, not even, like, with behavioral issues, but with, like, exhibiting, like, just very normal child misbehavior. I didn't know how to work with that. Because, like, as a kid, I was so scared of getting into trouble that, like, if somebody told me to stop doing something, that would be enough, right? Like, I did not know how to get into the headspace of a kid who, like, wanted to cause problems on purpose. Like, if they're like climbing over something they shouldn't be climbing, and you're like, get down from there, and then they say no, like I didn't have any like process of like, okay, where do I go next? Where do you go next, you know? Like, I don't know how to put myself into that headspace because I've never been in that headspace, you know? We mostly ignored the troublemakers. I mean, yeah, but there's a difference between kids making trouble and kids, like, putting themselves in danger that we could be legally liable for. Which usually ended up being more the issue. Yeah. This feels like I can't paint a masterwork on day one of painting class kind of complaint. I mean, yeah, but, like, it's a different when it's, like, the skill is with people, right? It's different when the skill is with people, right? Because, like, it's one thing if you can't, like, make something good the first try, but it's a different thing when, like, again, there are real people involved, right? Yeah, under the assumption that it was attention seeking. Yeah, again, some of it was that, but again, if your children are climbing over a thing that can fall over, you have to get them down from there. It's not a choice. They can only attention seek until the thing falls over on them. Yeah. How did the more talented ones do that? I guess they might have had siblings. Yeah, I mean, maybe? I think some of it is just, some of it I think is just noise toll. Some of it is how much noise can you tolerate before you go insane. Some of it I think is just that. It seems that my tolerance for noise is a lot lower than I thought before. So I think that was part of it. Cause like I definitely remember those weeks where I'd like excuse myself. I'd have to like excuse myself at lunch and just like go sit in a quiet room to like decompress. Cause it was just like, even the lunchroom was just like too loud. So I think that maybe that was part of it. I think being able to like keep up energy, I think was important. That was like another thing I feel like maybe I was lacking at the time, was just like the ability to like be energetic and stay energetic. I think having, I'm trying to think of like the counselors who were really good at their job. And I think for a lot of it was just like projecting a sense of authority. And I feel like that was something that I, you know, cannot do especially well. Like, because I knew, like, again, there was like one guy who had been working there for years and he was like very good at his job. He was very good at like both being silly and funny, but like knowing how to keep a group together, I think. And that was a skill I felt like I just did not have, I could not develop, I feel. I failed to develop that skill. Like finding that balance of, you know, approachable but authoritative. And I feel like that was where I failed. Yeah. Reverse psychology, the small child into not doing the thing they shouldn't do. just see, again, I think I just lack the authoritativeness, I think. The kids can see that I am soft and squishy. You know? And some of them like that. But, you know, some of them wanted to take advantage of that. One of the kids in my class always wanted to hold my hand. I wasn't sure if it was worse to allow it or to push them away, so I just went with allowing it. Again, I feel like maybe if it was like for school, that might be a bigger problem, but I feel like for summer camp, if it's only for a week, it's usually like, it's fine. It's fine. I'm trying to think of like things, because yeah, again, like, I think the other thing too is like, as a girl, as a female camp counselor, I feel like there was certain archetypes of camp counselor I could not achieve, if that makes sense. I don't know how to explain it, but it's like, I felt like, you know what I said before with like the authoritativeness, kind of that balance? I felt like the male counselors were often able to do that in a way the female counselors wouldn't, I guess. Because I felt like I felt like with a lot of like the female counselors, like I remember I had, there was one pair of counselors, they usually just kept getting assigned to the same groups together because they had like similar skill sets, I guess. They're both musicians. I remember they would talk about like, I remember somebody telling me once, they're like, they kind of just do like a good cop, bad cop thing, where one of them is like the one who's funny and silly and makes jokes, and the other one is the one who like, you know, enforces the rules. But yeah, it was the guy who usually ends up inhabiting the, you know, silly, funny jokes guy role. And it's usually ends up being the female counselor who ends up inhabiting the like, you know, the police officer or law enforcement role, you know? So I felt like as a girl, it felt more difficult to try and do both. Like, it felt like you kind of, if you wanted to be authoritative, you kind of had to like reject all silliness. That's kind of how it felt sometimes. But again, that's one of those things where I'm like, it's not like it's impossible. It's just that like, there's not a lot of people to imitate, right? Because again, all the people I knew who could keep a group of kids in order and were women were usually people who had kind of that stricter demeanor, right? But then like, if I didn't want to be that, then it's like, okay, I guess you just don't get to keep a group of kids together. Yeah, male interactors always carry the implication of I'm stronger than you, then that's more for interacting with boys. Yeah, I feel like also like male counselors kind of get the like that like loud booming voice kind of buff, you know? Where they can be louder and like grab everyone's attention, I think more so than like the female counselors. I don't know. Again, it's one of those things, it's not an insurmountable obstacle, because there's almost certainly somebody out there. There is absolutely a woman who has figured out how to be both silly and like, you know, silly and strict at the same time. Somebody has figured it out. Unfortunately, none of them worked at my camp, I feel. Again, it's not like the people I was working with were bad at, like, being camp counselors. But again, it was just like an archetype of person that just like didn't exist yet. At least not that I had met, you know? Yeah, I think you can't pick both good cop and bad cop role at the same time. Well, here's the thing, like, I did see people who were able to do kind of balance both. Again, you kind of have to lean more to one side or the other. And obviously sometimes too, with different groups, there'll be different needs. So like, yeah, so you might have to be more bad cop one week and then more good cop the other. But like, I felt like, again, you didn't have to completely throw away one to become the other, you know? Yeah. I was mostly trying to stop the kids from being afraid of me as a man, but maybe I should have leaned into it. Well, again, I feel like, I think the other thing too probably depends, because like, I feel like maybe things will change as like the roles of parents change in society. Because I feel like, you know, when I was a kid, it was more common for kids, like unless you had like, you know, divorced parents or you had like some specific arrangement, like I felt like it was like I spent probably more time with my mom than my dad as a kid, right? Because my mom worked part-time, so again, she wasn't exactly a stay-at-home mom, but like she was, you know, she worked from home. She had a part-time job that she did from home. So she was like the closest thing she could be to a stay-at-home mom while still working, right? So I feel like that was probably the case for a lot of other kids too, where like it was more common for kids to spend more time with their mother than with their father. So I feel like kind of that probably plays into like how children perceive like female teachers versus male teachers, right? So I feel like that was kind of, that might be part of it. And as, you know, roles in society change, I imagine that probably will change as well. Like, again, if kids are spending more equal time with their like father versus their mother, or if they spend more time with their father than their mother, then like that, again, that will probably have an effect on how kids perceive like authoritativeness and stuff, you know? But again, I'm not a child psychologist, so I am speaking entirely on personal experience. Like, yes, male counselors can yank you back with as much as force as you're accidentally about to walk in front of a truck could. I don't think actually male or female counselors are actually allowed to do that. Yeah, we didn't have training for kids that young, though. The program was supposed to be for smaller groups of older kids. Yeah. Oh, you know what? I think that was the other thing that made camp more stressful is they slashed the budget. This had nothing to do with children. At some point, I think between 2016 and 2019, somewhere in there, they like really cut down the budget. So we had much fewer staff than we did before. Like, basically, the entire staffing, before it was like trying to pair people with, you know, age groups that they were good at working with, or like, you know, put the music people at the music camp kind of thing. But it felt like after the budget cuts, it very much felt like everything was trying to, how do I say this? They were trying to just meet minimum supervision ratios at all time. And that made things very stressful because sometimes like you would be like one person assigned to a group of like, you know, however many kids. And if you were alone, it was very stressful because like you don't have a backup. If you need to leave to do something, like you can't. Like, you have to take the entire group with you, so it's like, oh, I forgot the first aid kit in the office. You have to, like, take the entire group back to the office to go pick up the first aid kit and then take all the kids back to your room. So, like, again, also, too, just, like, sometimes they would combine groups during lunchtime so that, like, people could take turns if somebody needed a break. But, yeah, again, it's a lot more stressful when you have to work with a lot less people, you know? Like, groups that would have had, like, 2 or 3 counselors in previous years now had, like, 1. They now had, like, 1. And it was, again, if you were the one person, it's like, okay, everything's on you. And you're like, ah. But, yeah, that was, I think maybe that was the other thing that, like, kind of killed it for me, was just, like, the stress of it, you know? Just, you know, everything's on you. It's all on you. Oh, I think there was also one more factor as well, is that, so they had a program that they introduced, I think in like 2017 or 2018, that was for, it was to like help kids with disabilities like integrate better into the camp. It was also an extremely, I think the first few years it was extremely poorly executed. So basically what they did was that they had one support worker who would be there on site to help whatever kid needed help integrating. The problem is that there was often more than one group. Like they would try to like integrate the kids in with like the like regular groups. So they didn't have, it's not like they had like one group, like this is like the special needs group. They would put them in with the regular groups, but they would basically have this one social worker who was just bouncing around to the different groups in camp. So yeah, if there was a situation that came up and the social worker was not there, it's like, okay, you're on your own to deal with it, right? Which, that felt very, I don't know, that was also pretty stressful. Because again, the people who had personal experience with this, they did fine. The people who did not felt incredibly out of their element. In later years, they did better. Like, they realized that system wasn't working, and they now have, I think in later years, they would have like one social worker per kid who needed it, which worked a lot better. Because the social worker would, be staying with that kid for the whole day and would be staying with that group the whole time. So it made things a little less stressful. But yeah, the first few years that they were doing this was like, and again, it's not the kid's fault, but it's just like the necessary support is not there. And like what ends up happening is just that nobody's happy, right? Because like the kid is having a bad time because they're in an environment where they're having all sorts of problems. And then the parent isn't happy because, their kid is having a bad time. And then we're not happy, like the counselors aren't happy because we are dealing with a stressful situation. So in the end, it's just like nobody is happy. Nobody is having a good time. Nobody is benefiting from this. So yeah, that was another thing that I think was just, again, it's probably better now because they probably have like more, again, it's probably better integrated now, but like now that they're more aware of it and now that the program's been in place for a few years. But yeah, it was complicated for a while. I made 116 total working that class for a semester. Please tell me you live in a place that was like a low cost of living and pay for my own gas to get there. That's just like it paid for itself, basically. At that point. Paid for that itself and you may have like $3 left over. But yeah, cutting the budget like that does sound risky. Yeah, but it's like, okay, we're given the budget to work with. We have the budget that we have. That wasn't down to me to decide, Okay, actually, you know what? Now that I think of it, I have one friend, and I think she still works with children. And she was good at doing the, like, authoritative but silly thing. But also, like, she does art. And she's good at art. And I feel like that might help. That might help. She teaches mostly art classes. But yeah, she's very good at that. I think, okay, I lied. I knew one person. Who was good at being like silly yet authoritative. And I don't know, I don't know how she does it. I worked with her when I was at that camp for several years. I still don't know how she does it. I cannot, whatever she's doing, I don't think I can replicate. But yeah, I think to be fair, part of it is that like, she was doing, like, weightlifting at the time. She was doing weightlifting at the time, when we were working at the camp together. I don't think she does it anymore, but I think she still has kind of that, like, leftover muscle residue, kind of. So I guess she kind of had the, like, build for it, where, like, she can be scary looking just by virtue of being pretty muscular. But, like, I remember at the time, she would tell kids, like, if somebody was misbehaving, because, like, I think at one point, I think she was able to deadlift what would essentially be the weight of, like, a child, right? So it was very funny, because, like, if a kid was misbehaving, she could just look at them and say, like, I could deadlift you. And, like, as a kid, you don't know what deadlifting means, but it's definitely a scary-sounding word, right? Like, being told that somebody could deadlift you when you are, like, 8 years old and don't know what that means, it's like, yeah, that sounds intimidating enough. Yeah. Just something I signed up for in college. Minimum wage doesn't take into account 1-hour shifts. Yeah. I think the one I worked at too, the pay structure, they changed it around when they cut the budget too. So it used to be that like you had regular counselors and specialty counselors, right? So regular counselors were paid minimum wage, specialty counselors were paid a bit more, right? But nowadays, I don't know if they changed it again, but when the budget cuts hit, they changed it so that instead of having one pay structure where you're either regular or specialty, you would have like regular hours and specialty hours. So like you would have like a regular, so like lunchtime, for instance, for everybody was regular hours, but it also meant that like logging your hours got way more complicated because like you would only get paid for as a specialty counselor. So like, let's say for instance, you were a dance teacher, you would only get paid as a specialty counselor for the hours in which you taught dance. So basically throughout the day, you'd have to track like, okay, when did I teach dance lessons or do dance related things, dance related activities? And then you would have to specifically log like, okay, I did, 4 hours of dance related activities today. And then like everything else was, regular activities, right? So you would essentially get paid specialty counselor wages for specifically the hours where you were doing your specialty. And then for like the rest of the hours, you would be paid minimum wage. I don't think anyone liked this change because it was both more complicated and resulted in everybody getting less money. But again, I don't know why they did it that way. I guess because like they didn't want to like, I guess it's like they didn't want to find less qualified staff, I guess, maybe. But yeah, it was very annoying. Also too, like some specialties you can do for longer than others, right? Like for dance teachers, usually they would have like one dance teacher who would like bounce around to the different camps, like to the different groups. But like, again, if you were teaching like again, for music, like if you were teaching music, you could maybe like do that for like an hour at most. So it's like, okay, cool, I get my one specialty hour a day. And then everything else is minimum wage. It's like, But yeah. Has the word dead in it. Yeah, it's like deadlifts. That means you're dead. It literally just means that, like, they are lifting it off the ground and then putting it back down. But, it sounds very scary. It sounds very scary. But, yeah, that was, again, speaking entirely from personal experience. I don't know what working with children is like now. I don't know. I don't think I've said anything that's, like, too off base, probably. Because I know sometimes you say things, like, I'll talk about my experience of, like, working with children, and then people who still work as teachers or as, like, childcare workers will just be like, I'm not sure about that. But, I don't know. I don't think I've said anything that, like, anyone would, like, disagree with. I think? Probably. Probably. I just remember it was very stressful. It used to be less stressful, and then it became more stressful over time. And... yeah, I don't know. I guess, I don't know. I don't know if I went back to working with children, I feel like I'd rather do it in a school. Because I feel like a school has more structure, so it's easier to keep things together. Because that's the thing with summer camp, right? Because, like, it helped that we were, like, an arts camp. So usually it was expected that the kids would have something to show for it at the end of the week. So, like, we'd put on a little play, or we'd, like, have a little, like, the kids would perform a few songs, or they would, like, make art and show it off at the end of the week. So I think in that way, it was easier to keep a group together when you had some goal or some structure. Because there was definitely some weeks where, like, the kids were, like, super rambunctious, and then we're like, okay, we're gonna put on a play, and then everybody would just instantly fall in line. But, yeah... I think, like, I feel like with school, because there is a curriculum and there is things that the kids are expected to be able to know by the end of the year, I feel like that kind of structure probably makes it, maybe not easier, but at least, like, you don't have the stress of, like, trying to figure out what is happening next all the time, because you have lesson plans and you have things that are, what's happening next, more or less, right? Yeah, more of the story, fun teachers better because the good ones will quit. Exactly. Exactly. And, like, the ones that are left over are not going to be happy with it, Like, I don't know. I know education is like kind of a mess in most places right now. But again, it's one of those things where I feel like with most problems, it's sometimes a little more complicated than just like throw more money at it. And this definitely is one of those cases. But I also feel like throwing more money at it wouldn't hurt. You know, it wouldn't be a bad place to start, to just throw more money at it, you know? Half listening. Eggy deadlifts children. How scary. No, I didn't lift children. My friend could. My friend could if she wanted to. But no, I could not. I don't think I could deadlift much of anything. Yeah. But yeah. Yeah, children difficult. Children difficult. Not me though. I was too well behaved, and that's the problem. Personally, if I was a child and somebody told me to stop doing something, I would simply stop doing it, and also maybe start crying. Again, I was like so scared of getting into trouble that like I was like, somebody told me like, oh yeah, you're not allowed to stand there. You're not like in trouble or anything. Just don't stand there anymore. And then I would still be upset. I think I've told the story on stream before. There was once when I was a kid, I went swimming, like at a hotel. I was with my family. I went swimming in the swimming pool at a pool, and I did the thing, you know how they have like the rule signs up and that like have the list of rules of like, you know, like don't run on deck, don't dive in the shallow end, like stuff like that. And I remember reading that like there was like a maximum occupancy for the pool. So I saw that number there. It's like maximum this number of people. I don't remember what it was. And I just remember I like counted the number of people who were in the pool right now, and it was higher than the number there. And then I started crying because I thought we were going to get kicked out. I thought we were going to get kicked out of the pool. Like to the point that like my parents actually had to like leave. We had to like leave and go back up to our room because I was so upset. I don't know. I guess I didn't process that like rules have to have enforcement. Like the idea of enforcement just like did not process in my child brain. I just like assumed the rules were the rules, and then if you broke the rules, then you were in trouble. Like the idea that like somebody has to be there to get you in trouble just like did not process in my brain. Like I was very rules child. Like I don't know, like I feel like, I mean, I guess there were rules that I'd break, but they were like rules that'd be hard to be mad at you if you broke. Like things like, you know, I would be reading a book in class when I was not supposed to be reading a book. And like, on one hand, it's like, okay, well, I technically broke that rule by reading. But on the other hand, the teachers are like, well, she's reading books. Like, we can't be that mad at her for reading books, right? Like, I feel like that was maybe one of the few rules I would break, was reading books. Like, I feel like a lot of the things I did wrong as a kid weren't really rule breaking. They were just kind of like, things that were only a problem for me specifically. So like my desk was always super messy as a kid, but that wasn't like breaking rules. Like it was better if you had a clean desk, but it wasn't like affecting anybody else if your desk was messy, right? Like it's not like it's illegal to have a messy desk, right? But yeah, in terms of like actual like school rules of like, you know, I didn't want to get in trouble. Sounds like something I would have done. Well, it's like, yeah, it's like, I don't know. It's weird because like as a kid, I knew about like, I knew that the police existed. I knew that like people were like, rule enforcement existed. I just didn't process that they were like necessary for the rules to be enforced, you know? Yeah, I'm still kind of like that to a lesser extent. Oh yeah, definitely for sure. Like, I mean, maybe less so, but like, I think for me, it's if I'm not sure what the consequences are, I will not do something, you know? I don't do a lot of like speaking out of line, you know? Like, the occupancy is for safety reasons. Yeah. But like, keep in mind, I was counting the people in the pool area. Not all of these people were in the pool. I guess like I was also counting like the people, like the parents sitting and watching their kids on the side of the pool, right? Like not all of these people were swimming. But like, again, it wasn't even, I don't think it was even that much over the limit. I think it was maybe like 2 people over the limit, but again, that was enough to like upset me. But again, like, those signs of the pool rules, I guess it's more like insurance reasons. Like, if someone runs on deck and like gets hurt, then like the hotel can, you know, tap the sign and be like, well, what did we say? What did we tell you? I guess it's more like that kind of situation. But yeah. Yeah. There's certain things I'm just like, no, I will not do it. Like, I did not drink at all in high school because I was like, A, alcohol tastes bad, but B, even if alcohol tastes good, like, I could get in trouble. Probably not that much trouble because there are probably like worse things you can do as a teenager. But like, I don't want to get in trouble. Ow. Sorry, I like tried to move my foot and it like completely slipped. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't go to parties in high school much because it was like 50% of it was just like too much noise. And then like the other 50% of it is like, what if I get in trouble? Like, I have a story. Uh-oh. Bro has a story. Yeah. As a kid, when I was learning programming, I did a very bad thing. I stole a book from the school. The lady knew about it and she scolded me really hard. She said I could keep the book as long as I would never do that again, so I kept that promise. That lady changed my life for the best. So you still learned programming. Did you steal it, like, was it like a book in class or was it like a library book? Because, like, I don't know. I don't think I ever intend. I mean, I guess. I mean, I don't know. Is it? I guess you can technically steal from the library, but like, I don't think I've ever stolen from the library intentionally. It's more just like I forgot to, like, check out a book when I was like going through the checkout. Like, I would just like forget to scan a book or something. I should get a library card here. I just realized. Maybe I'll do that this afternoon. Maybe after I finish stream, I'll like take a shower and go to the library. Because like I haven't been to the library in a while. At least not my local one. Because, like, I think last year, like, if you want to sign up for a library card, you have to have some kind of proof that you, like, live within the city limits. Which, at the time last year that I was going to the library, I did not. Like, my IDs all still said my old address. So, but now that I do have proof that I live here, I should probably sign up for a library card. I think I have like a virtual one that lets me like access like the library databases, but I think you have to go in person to get like an in-person library card. Yeah, I stole from the library. You fool! The book was already free! But yeah, I think, I don't know. I remember once when I was a kid as well, like, my parents got mad at my sister. It was more my sister, I think, who did this than me. But maybe I'm just forgetting. So we were at a bookstore. And it was one of those bookstores with like the kid sections that's mostly a toy store. It's like a toy store with some books, you know? And I guess there were these like magic wand toys that had like, you know, like rhinestones and bits of feathers and stuff on them, and they weren't glued on very well, and a lot of them had fallen to the floor. And my sister had like picked up a whole bunch of them. Like, she didn't grab them. I don't know if my parents got mad because they thought that she had grabbed them like off, like she had broken them off the toy, but no, they were already on the ground. I remember seeing them there. They were just like lying on the ground in front of the display of them because they were just like so poorly put together that they, you know, all the stuff was just falling off. But my sister had like picked it up because, you know, shiny thing and you're a kid. And then my parents got mad and they had to like drive her back to the store and made her like put it back where she found it, which was the floor largely. But yeah, I guess you forgot to get a library card after switching your ID. Well, after I switched my ID, then I like turned around and started working and did not have time to go to the library. I love libraries growing up. Unfortunately, I don't have none of that next to me anymore. I mean, I think the thing is that the city I grew up in, I think the rich people of that city were just like really into books. Is the impression I got, because it felt like the library, despite the fact that it was a smaller city, I feel like the library was pretty well funded. Like, I think they just had like a lot of, you know, big donors. So yeah, I remember moving to like when I was in high school, we moved to a city that was bigger, and yet the library system was worse. I don't know why, but it was like worse. And it was just like, there just wasn't anything. Like, well, it's not like there was nothing, but it just felt like everything felt incomplete. Like the selection was a little worse. Sometimes they would have like the second volume of something, but not the first. Like, not just like in the library, like in the system. Like they would have like incomplete series. I remember too, something you could do in the libraries that I grew up with, like in the city I grew up in, birth Eggy City, I guess. Something you could do was you could place a hold on a book before they had received it, right? So if there was a book that was coming out soon and the library knew that they were going to order copies and they knew how many copies they were going to get, they would put it into the system before it came out, like before they actually received it. So you could essentially just like pre-order it, sort of. So if there was a book you knew was coming out soon, you could search it up in the library system, and if it was in the system, you could essentially like pre-hold it. You could place a hold so that like you would be one of the first people to get it when they do get it in the system. Which is something that like you could not do in Eggy City. I don't know why. But it's like a good idea. Like they would only put stuff in the system after they had it. Which I'm like, so you couldn't like pre-order it or anything. You could only like get it once it was there, which I don't know, it was annoying. Because you'd have to go back and keep checking if they have it yet, right? So, yeah. Librarian and the math teacher saved my life. I studied a very dangerous public school filled with drug dealers and stuff. I found something I'd like to focus on and never touch this stuff. Good! Nice and good. Maths was not my thing. But if it is your thing, I'm happy that you can have a good experience with it. It can be beneficial. But yeah, I don't know. The libraries were, I don't know. The one in the Eggy City was mid. I haven't tried the one here, so this is an even bigger Eggy City. So current Eggy City is much bigger. So hopefully the library will be much better. But again, I've learned that the size of the city does not seem to have an effect on the quality of the library. So we'll have to see. But I should at least get a card. Now that I have time that I can go there often enough that I don't have to worry about, like... Because that was the other thing, too, is that, like, the library that I went to in Eggy City was, like... It was very... Like, I felt like they were slightly out of the way. So a lot of the time, like, I would end up with late fees just because, like, I would accidentally... Like, I just wouldn't have time to go back to one. Like, I wouldn't have time to go, like, return the books. So I'd accidentally end up with late fees. Because I was like, whoops. That's been 3 weeks. Whoops. Yeah. Ironically, I'm not that good at math, but I became good with computers, so it helped. Get it? Can you apply it? Can you apply it any moment? Yep. You just have to go in person. That's the main thing. But there's a library not too far from me in one direction, and then there's another one that's not too far from me in the other direction. There's one that's easier to get to by walking, and there's another one that's easier to get to by bus. So I haven't been to the bus one. The one that I could get to by bus I haven't been to yet, but it's like literally right in front of the bus stop. So it's like, yeah, I could just like take a bus there, and I could just like get off and immediately be at library. I don't know which one is bigger though, like in terms of like selection and stuff. I don't know which one's bigger. But I guess I can go to the other one and find out. There's nothing stopping me from doing that. I wonder if the weather is nice today. I'm seeing sun. I'm seeing sun in that tiny little bit of window I have. I'm seeing the sun. I don't know if that means it's warm though. Because in winter, the sun frequently just straight up lies to you. Like, this keeps happening. The sun just lies. Sometimes in the winter, if you see the sun, it actually means that it's colder than if it was cloudy. I remember, like, in some situations, somebody told me once, they're like, did you know that if you see the sun in the winter, sometimes it's because it's literally too cold for clouds to form in the sky? Like, because yeah, like, in previous Eggy City, if you had, like, a cloudy winter day, it was probably going to be, like, you know, maybe just hovering just below 0, right? If you had a sunny winter day, that thing was going to be at least -20, if not colder. The weather app might have somewhat accurate. Yeah. Let's see. Well, let's see. What is it like right now? What's it like right now? Let's see. Eggy City weather. Current Eggy City weather. Current. It is 3 degrees Celsius. That's not bad. It will go down to 1, and it looks like it's gonna say sunny most of the day. What's the week gonna look like? It's definitely getting warmer. Today is high of 3. Tomorrow it's gonna be colder, but not that much colder. High of -1. Sunday will be high of 2. Monday high of 1. Oh no, sorry. Sunday high of 2. Monday high of 5. Wow. Tuesday high of 9. Whoa. Wednesday high of 3. Thursday high of 5. And then next Friday is also high of 5. Okay, so spring is happening. Very slowly, but like it's happening. Let me see 2 weeks. Whoa, we're gonna get a day where it's gonna be 10 degrees. We're getting into the double digits. Let's go. I love when there's double digits. I love when it's double digits. I don't know. That was always the thing with my family. My mom would be like it would get to be like 10 degrees and it's like, it's double digits. It's double digits. We made it. We made it. Yeah. The sun is still your friend. No, the sun is not my friend in the winter, but now that we're exiting the winter, the sun has tried to make amends here. I like the phrase, so spring is happening. Well, look, okay. Here's the thing. I am accustomed to winter taking forever to go away. Like, I remember, like, because people who have lived in Japan for a while will sometimes make fun of this, of how Japanese people sometimes seem to act like Japan is the only country with 4 seasons. And, like, on one hand, it's like, obviously they're not the only country that has it, but I can sort of see where they're coming from. Because I feel like Japan has, like, 4 seasons of roughly equal length and roughly equal uniqueness. Whereas I feel like here, we have a very long winter, we have a short spring, then you turn around and it's already June. Then we have, like, you know, a fairly normal length summer. Then fall is like 2 months. It's like fall is like, you know, October and maybe early November, and then you turn around and it's already winter. So like winter takes up like half the year, so they have to like squeeze the other seasons into the other half of the year, right? Japan is silly because they have 5 seasons. What's the 5th one? What's the 5th one? But yeah, I felt like in Japan it was like I experienced real spring for the first time. Because I got there and it was like just like the end of summer. It was like late September, so it was like getting out of summer. And fall legitimately lasted until January. Like fall really did last until late December. Like when they said the first day of winter was December, you know, 20th, 21st, that felt correct. That does not feel correct in Canada. Like by the time you get to December 21st, you've already been in winter for like a month, you know? But no, first day of winter was, December 21st. It felt like it. First day of spring was like March 21st. It felt like it. Like it felt like there was like there was an actual spring that actually happened in March and April. Canada, 5 months winter, 3 months summer, 4 months of varying weather. Yeah. Well, it just feels like, that was the other thing I noticed with fall there as well, is that like fall here is it's like an explosion, right? Like everything turns orange all at once and it's very pretty, but then it goes away after like 3 weeks. Like it's only like 2 or 3 weeks that we have actual leaves. Whereas I felt like fall in Japan, where at least where I was, I imagine it's probably different the further north you go, but like at least in Kobe, it was more of a slow burn. Like you would notice like, you know, it's October, the trees are sort of starting to get orange, but like it happens a lot slower, and the orange leaves take a lot longer to fall, right? Like the trees have leaves on them for much longer than they do in Canada, where it's like everything turns orange really fast and then it falls all at once, where it felt like a little more gradual in Kobe. So yeah, but I don't know. I'm not accustomed to having a real spring. Like where I'm from, it's like everything, like there is going to be snow up until like, you know, April, even sometimes the beginning of May. Like people tell you the first day of spring is March 21st and they will laugh in your face because they will almost certainly I don't know, there's been snowstorms happening on the first day of spring. So So yeah, by the time it's actually warm enough to feel like an actual spring, and by the time things feel like, you know, green and lush and alive, it's basically almost June. It's like, you know, it's like mid-May at that point. It's basically almost summer. Like you turn around and it's like first day of summer is like what, like June 21st, and you're like, oops. So yeah, spring, like actual spring, where you're like, ah, spring. There's maybe like a month of that. Yeah, I basically have no seasons. Oh, do you live somewhere super cold or somewhere super warm? At least it's not Alberta, where it'll randomly snow in July. Yeah, I think Alberta, well, Alberta is like completely landlocked, so I feel like they have it the worst. I've heard that like Calgary can sometimes get like -40 or something. Even I haven't experienced anything that cold. Like, I'm surprised that the entire, like, all the infrastructure doesn't just like snap in half. Like, I'm surprised they still have functioning power cables at that, or those temperatures. Could be the type of trees. I'm much further south than you, but our fall is only a few weeks too. Maybe, maybe. But I think it might have something to do with like maybe how fast the temperatures drop relative to the amount of sunlight as well. Because I was thinking recently in Canada, there was a tree actually in my neighborhood where I used to live that it would turn orange before the rest of the neighborhood. Because it was in the shadow of like 2 separate apartment buildings. So it was kind of like double shadowed on from all sides. And this tree would start turning orange in like mid-August. Like, this tree was early. Like, by the time all the other trees were turning orange, it had already lost, like, a good chunk of its leaves. So I don't know if it's, like, maybe there's, I don't know, maybe we just don't get enough sun, or that causes things to fall faster, but yeah. I wonder how alert fares season-wise. Oh, yeah, like, way up in Alaska. I'm not sure, actually. I know they do still have, like, a colder season and a warmer season, but I'm not sure what happens in between. 25 to 35 for the whole year, basically. Ah, but I'm sure you probably have like a rainy season or something, right? I'm sure there's probably like some change in temperature, or not necessarily temperature, but like, you know, some change in climate. I'd be fine if it was like 10 degrees Celsius less. Yeah, I mean, 35 I think is pushing it. Like, I think the hottest I've experienced I think is like 40 degrees, but like, in previous Eggy City, sometimes we would get that hot, but that was like a heat warning thing. That was like, we are keeping our kids indoors because it's too hot outside kind of temperatures, you know? Alert is the northernmost settlement in Canada. Is Alert not in Alaska? Am I stupid? Hold on, I might be stupid. Alert. No, okay, it's in Nunavut. What? Why did I think that was Alaska? I guess it's not a very Nunavut name, I guess. Alert is named after the HMS Alert. Okay, it turns out I might just not be very smart. Okay, I could have sworn that this was in Alaska. Demographics? No. Climate? Why did I think this was in the States? Yeah. The winter just rains a bit more, nothing too fancy. Calgary has Chinookins helping to raise temperatures in winter, alleviating the brunt of winter intermittently. I guess, yeah. But I've heard it still gets pretty cold. It still gets pretty cold. This is what America wants you to think. They're colonizing your brain. Yeah, I live near the beach, so oh yeah, so it's probably pretty stable there. Cause like, I guess maybe that's also why it might have been warmer in Japan, because like I was also our city was also like a port city. Like Kobe is a port, right? So like I guess we were also by the water, so that probably also like evens things out a bit. I guess last time you thought Alert is in the States for some reason. I guess the name Perse is like Alaska. Well, here's the thing. I feel like for the most part, like I feel like the because like the capital of Nunavut, which is like the one city in Nunavut that we tend to learn about, is Iqaluit, right? So I think most of them, I feel like they take the names from like the natives that live there, right? Like I feel like alert threw me off because, like, I guess I just assumed that, like, because Iqaluit is named Iqaluit, they probably would have just kept, like, the Inuit names for the other places too. But I'm like, I don't know why the states would name... like, it was all the British coming, right? So I'm like, I guess it would make sense that the states would name their Alaska stuff after, like, English stuff, and that Canada wouldn't. I guess that checks out. But... yeah. I don't know. I have not been to Alaska. Yeah. A big port. Yeah, Kobe is port. It is a port. There are boats and water. I could look out my window and I would see water. I don't think there were a lot of beaches. Like, it wasn't that kind of, like, oceanside thing. But there was a lot of, like, you know, you could look outside and see water. Water. But, yeah. I don't know. I'm good with living somewhere that would have a shorter winter. I am not good with being cold. To be fair, everybody who lives in a hot climate hears this and they're like, oh, you don't understand what it's like to be warm all the time. But I'm also just like, you don't understand what it's like to not be able to feel parts of your body. You don't understand what it's like to have to, like, spend, you know, like, you have to, like, in the winter you have to, like, account for more time. Like, London, Canada. Yeah, that's fair. We have a lot of British name cities. What do we have? Like, we have London. I think there's a Paris in Ontario too. It's not a very big city, but it exists. What else? I think York is a place in Canada. There's definitely more of them that are named after, like, European places. Yeah. I mean, warm and humidity is taxing, to be fair, yeah. I'll take the hot summers, although it never gets extreme here. Because, yeah, like, I think when I landed in Japan, to be fair, I think they were coming out of a very, like, warm summer, and I remember I was like... So, when I left Canada, right, when I left from Eggy City Airport, it was 16 degrees that morning. I had a big sweater on. It was 16 degrees Celsius. When I landed in Osaka, it was like 9 p.m. Like, the sun had just gone down, and it was still like 30 degrees. I was like melting because I was still wearing that same sweater that I was wearing when I took off, right? I was completely melting. And I remember those first few days were a bit rough, partly because I hadn't quite figured out how to work the air conditioning in my room yet. And also I hadn't quite figured out, because again, I had packed mostly like fall and winter clothes, right? But it turns out that, like, yeah, fall and winter means something very different in, you know, Eggy City, Canada versus Kobe, Japan, right? So, yeah, it was a little rough at the beginning, but I'm pretty sure if I would have been there longer, I would have just gotten used to it, you know? I would have figured out how to get my aircon working. I would have figured out, like, you know, this is when you should and shouldn't open a window. This is, like, what you should and shouldn't be wearing right now. Like, yeah. I'm from Minnesota, and part of the year I hate the most is the 2 or 3 weeks where it gets really hot and humid. Yeah, again, I mean, it would get pretty hot and humid in previous Eggy City. Here, not so much, but, like, yeah, it was, again, I prefer the heat. I would prefer living somewhere that would have, you know, just a little too warm, rather, because, like, yeah, BRB wasting 3 hours of the day shoveling snow, warming up the car, cleaning snow off the car. Yeah, and even just, like, to leave the house. It's like, okay, let me just grab my coat and also my hat and also my gloves and also let me put on my boots. It's like, there's so many extra steps. Like, going out in the winter feels like such a pain sometimes, because it's like, in the summer, it's like, step 1, put on shoes. Step 2, make sure you have your wallet and keys. Step 3, leave the house, right? Whereas it feels like in the winter, it's like there's like so many more things you have to keep track of, and like it literally just takes longer to leave the house. Like even if you're just like going to like put the garbage out or like check the mail, I feel like it's annoying. It's annoying. Germany is slightly cooled by Canadian measures to 40-degree peaks in summer. Oof. I mean, I don't know. There's some parts of Canada that get 40 degrees almost in the summer. They definitely exist. It's just that the summer doesn't last as long, so people don't think about it as much because the winter is so harsh that, like, it makes you crave the 40-degree summer. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's like everything takes longer in the winter in a way that, like, it doesn't take when it's too hot, you know? I think people who have never experienced massive amounts of snow underestimate how inconvenienced you can get by massive amounts of snow, you know? Do not underestimate how much you will be inconvenienced by snow. It is so inconvenient. It is insanely inconvenient. The Canadian Shield and Hudson Bay probably influence Canada's weather in a big way. I am not a climate scientist. I know what the Canadian Shield is. I don't know. Do most people live in the Canadian Shield? I'm pretty sure like all the big cities are not. Most of the major cities are not in the Canadian Shield, I don't think. But again, I know that just because nobody's living there doesn't mean that like it doesn't have an effect. Also, wear laundry in the winter with all the layers. Yeah! You're literally, and also traveling in the winter is a lot rougher because it's like, okay, you literally have to pack, you can fit less clothes in your suitcase because everything is thicker, right? Like your pants, you gotta have full pants. Like in the summer, it's like, oh, I can pack shorts. I can pack like short skirts. No, in the winter, it's like, everything has to be super thick. You can physically fit less clothes in your suitcase. Yeah, because there's a Canadian Shield there. The Canadian Shield has an effect because there's the Canadian Shield. This is due to the effects of the Canadian Shield. Yeah, even moderate snow could be pretty inconvenient. Yeah, like... I mean, okay. Moderate snow, I think, is only inconvenient for, like, the first day that it happens. Because it's, like, inconvenient, like, the morning after, right? When they have to plow all the snow, and they have to, like, get it off the roads, and things are still kind of slippery, and people have to shovel their driveways. But then, you know, after that, it just becomes kind of, you know, normal. It's not too bad, right? Heavy snow stays inconvenient for several days. Like, heavy snow can stay inconvenient right up until it melts, you know? That's when the problem is. Yeah. Because there's a Canadian Shield there, because not many more houses and cities being built there. Yeah. I'm sure there's probably at least one city that's in there, but yeah. But yeah, no, winter is just very inconvenient. Why is it called a shield? Was not protecting me from the cold. Exactly. What's it protecting me from? I'm sure it's protecting me from something. Maybe the Arctic. Maybe it's protecting us from, like, the Arctic. It's protecting us from, like, the polar bears or something. But, yeah. It's protecting the Arctic from the rest of Canada. It's like, no, that land must remain. We cannot let the rest of Canada touch it. It's going to be corrupted by whatever's down south. Because, like, yeah, I know people do live there, but, like, not in, like, major cities. Not, like, major metropolises. Metropoli? Metropolis? Big city. Protecting you from the giant moose. Oh, actually another funny summer camp story. So there was one day where there had been, like, the highway was, like, kind of stopped for a while because there had been a moose that had gotten hit by a car on the highway. And so they had to, like, kind of clear the area for a bit so that they could, like, move the moose somewhere else. But I remember that, like, I did not believe, because so basically what happened is that there was some kids who came in late, and the kids were telling us, oh, it's because there was a moose on the highway. And I did not believe them. I did not believe them because I legit thought it was like someone's dad had like, you know when you're like your dad tells you something as a joke and like you're a kid and you don't quite realize it's a joke yet, so you just go around like kind of telling everybody that. I assumed it was somebody, like some kid's dad told them that as a joke and they just did not realize it was a joke and they were now like, you know, telling us this information. And then like again, more kids were late and the parents were like, oh sorry, there was a moose on the highway. And in my mind I'm like, okay, they are continuing with the joke. And then I had some of my coworkers who were there late and they're like, oh yeah, there was a moose. Did you hear there was a moose on the highway? I'm like, wait, that was real? That was real? I did not realize that was like a legit thing. There was legit a moose on the highway and that's why everybody was late. This is like the most Canadian situation possible. Like, it's like the most Canadian explanation for why you were late this morning. It's like, why were you late for work? Oh, there was a moose on the highway. It's called land because we land there after flying. But yeah. But that's the thing with, I don't know, apparently it was like a baby moose too that like got hit. Because like, apparently a full-size moose might actually survive being hit by a car, question mark? But like, I guess a younger moose who's smaller would probably get knocked over by the car. We get deer sometimes. Oh yeah, deer, that's pretty common here. I think the thing with moose is they usually, like, most moose will stay away from the roads. Although moose are actually very dangerous. Like, I think, like, I know they have to keep putting out PSAs for tourists that moose are in fact very dangerous and that you should not approach moose. You should not try to touch moose. Like, they will kill you. You can be killed by a moose. That is a thing that they can do to you. Like, I think people underestimate the size of a moose because I think some people just like assume they're like roughly the same size of as a horse, and also vastly underestimate how big a horse is. But no, moose are both bigger and also stronger and like more aggressive. Yeah, do not, if you see a moose, you can look at it and be like, whoa, a moose. But do not go any further than that. Do not go any further than that. You know, turn around, go somewhere else where you can tell everybody else about the cool moose you saw, you know? Yeah, they're about the shoulder height of an adult male. Yeah, but like antlers and stuff. Or I'm assuming that's without antlers, right? But yeah. Moose are scary. Like, people are afraid of bears, as they should be, but people are not afraid enough of moose. You cannot fight a moose and win, in the same way that you cannot fight a bear and win. Yeah, even a bull or a normal cow can be pretty dangerous. Isn't there like a certain number of people each year who are like killed by cows? Or in like cow accidents? Like there was just like an aggressive cow? Because I mean, I guess a cow, like if they even just like knock you over hard enough, that could probably like, you know, if you hit your head the wrong way. Like, the friendship, why not friend? They look so silly, why are they so harmful? I mean, to be fair, people say the same thing with bears. They are so silly, and yet so vicious. How? Yeah, yaks are pretty big too. Probably alpacas as well. Yeah, you must mean their shoulders are high. Yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, that seems... No, moose are definitely bigger than that. Moose are definitely bigger than that. You are almost certainly shorter than a moose. No matter how tall you are probably shorter than a moose. You are certainly weaker than a moose. Like, you can't fight a moose. Just don't attempt it. Yeah, a cow that thinks your dog threatens their calf might just trample you to death to get the dog. Yeah. Like, capybaras can be aggressive despite looking cute and friendly. Yeah. I mean, I've been told that they're like less aggressive, but imagine if you like, you know, get them in the wrong situation, they will be like angry. Well, the thing is, I don't know, most animals I feel can hurt you in some capacity if you like make them feel threatened enough. Like even stuff like, you know, like squirrels or, you know, rabbits or something, right? Like even domesticated animals, like people get bitten by like dogs and cats all the time, right? Ew. Yeah. Honey badger would be pretty bad too. Yeah. Yeah, if they have cubs around, yeah. Yeah, it probably depends on which one that you run into. And how close you get, probably. Because, like, what makes different animals feel threatened will probably be different, right? Like, I don't think it's physically possible to get close enough to a squirrel to threaten it, because it will just run away. But I'm sure if you, like, cornered it or something, it might. Even birds, probably. Even birds. I don't think there's a lot of harmless creatures. Maybe, like, bugs that can't sting or bite. Maybe, like, flies. Or, like, I don't know, fruit flies, maybe? I mean, I guess they can hurt you indirectly in terms of, like, spreading germs and disease and such. But I feel like in terms of, like, scratching and or biting and or, you know, I feel like very small insects are probably the least likely to hurt you. Everything else can and maybe will hurt you. You may even be betrayed by your own dog or your own meow meow. You may be betrayed. I specifically don't mess up with birds. Yeah. Birds scary. I don't know. Birds absolutely. Do not underestimate birds. Do not underestimate anything, actually. Do not underestimate any animal, I think, is probably good advice. But, yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not a nature person. Nature is scary. Nature is scary. Like, there was one summer where my city was putting out a bajillion PSAs about ticks. And then I just, like, didn't, like, I kept thinking about that every time I went into, like, an even sort of grassy area. I'm like, what if there are ticks here? Wolves are pretty big, too. Yeah, but, like, the difference is people know to be scared of wolves. I feel like most people are scared of wolves. Like, I feel like that's, like, a very normal thing, right? To be scared of wolves. I think it's moose. People assume, I guess, because moose are mostly, like, they're not, like, carnivorous creatures. Like, it's not like wolves or, like, you know, or, like, bears or something where you're like, ah, this is a vicious creature. You're like, haha, a moose. Silly. Which is why people keep getting killed by moose. If a squirrel or rabbit attacks a human, there's probably something wrong with it if it hasn't been pushed into a corner. Exactly. Like, these are animals that are, like, you know, more accustomed to running away than they are to, like, actually attacking. But yes, top 5 anime. Okay. Top 5. I don't know if this is my top 5, but I will name 5 anime that I have enjoyed. Revolutionary Girl Utena is usually what I say when people ask for my favorite. Onisama-e, or Dear Brother, that's like a second place one. I guess Rose of Versailles in third. I've been watching Apothecary Diaries recently. I've been really liking that. That may be, I don't know, number 4? I don't know what number 5 would be. Maybe Skate the Infinity? Maybe Skate the Infinity. I don't know. I don't know if those are top 5, but those are definitely, like, 5 anime that I have watched and enjoyed and would gladly recommend to other people. There's certainly 5 of them. Ooh, stretch. Stretch in a way that won't hurt my neck. There we go. Yeah. 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 I have been yapping for 3 hours and 38 minutes, my god. I should probably... Maybe I should eat lunch. Maybe I'll wrap this up and eat lunch. It was a good yapping. This has been a good yapping, I think. Should crowdfund a Magical Girl Eggy anime. Animation is so expensive, and, like, it should be. It's expensive for a reason. If you see anything animated, you know that somebody, like, poured a ton of money into it, no matter how poorly animated it is. But I don't know. I feel like Magical Girl Eggy, I would have to, like, design I need to design Eggy outfits. I think I need to design... Oh, maybe I should do a stream sometime of like... I need to design an idol Eggy outfit. Because I remember I was talking to Kengi a while back. Because, you know how I have my V-Roid? And one of my issues I had with my V-Roid is just that, like, long skirts are, like, the enemy of, like, 3D models. Like, long hair and long skirts. Because I remember I was having an issue where, like, if I tried to make my model dance, even with, like, an MMD or something, the skirt would just do all sorts of weird things, right? And I just didn't like how it looked. So I asked him, like, would it be possible to either get a shorter skirt? And he was like, well, maybe at that point you could always just, like, maybe make it a completely different outfit. Like, if you wanted to have, like, an outfit specifically for doing, like, you know, dances, like, in MMDs and stuff, you might want to have, like, just get an outfit with, like, a shorter skirt or shorts or something. So, yeah, I feel like... Are you going to redesign your avatar to 3D? Oh, I already have a 3D model. I already have a V-Roid. I haven't used it that much recently, but I'll probably pull it out eventually. I have a V-Roid. But yeah, I think if I want to get a second outfit for the V-Roid, like an idol outfit, I would have to like, I can't just go up to him and be like, hey, please make me idol. I have to actually have like ideas and stuff. So that might be a stream in itself. Designing idol Eggy. Yeah. Yeah, skirts need something that can render self-collisions in real time. Yeah, and I just think V-Roid doesn't have that kind of... Because again, most of the V-Roids I see usually are like, you know, pants or shorter skirts. That seems to be a thing for 3D models in general. Like, if you've ever done MMDs with any models of Luca, like the Vocaloid, you'll know that is a difficult and annoying task. Because Luca has both long hair and a long skirt. And yeah, 3D model, like, programs a lot of the times, they just, like... Because either you make the collision... Either there's, like, too much collision and, like, nothing touches the skin ever, or there's, like, you have to deal with a certain amount of stuff clipping through the body, right? Yeah. How does HoloLive handle clothes? I don't know. At some point, I think with 3D modeling is you have to decide, like, when stuff will, when stuff will clip through and when stuff will go around. I think the issue with my long skirt is that, like, the way it's modeled as, like, one shape, right? It's modeled as a single shape rather than as a, I guess rather than as, like, a, like, item of clothing, right? It's not like a piece of cloth that is around the bottom half of my body. It's, like, one shape of a skirt, and when I move, the shape bends with it. But unfortunately, that's not how skirts work in real life necessarily. So what happens is a lot of time you get the skirt just like bending into a weird shape. Which again, you can work with this if you're doing like renders. Like if you're doing like a still picture, you can work with this. But if it's in motion, then I think it gets a little more difficult. Yeah. So, yeah. That's something I will probably... Because again, for streaming it usually doesn't matter either, because most of the time when you're streaming, like, you know, nobody cares what your legs look like or if they're even there. Like, you know, nobody's looking at your legs because they can't see them. They're literally not on screen. So yeah, I will... But yeah, if I want to have an idol outfit, because I know we had brainstormed a couple things, because he'd recommended like maybe try something with like shorts maybe. So I would have to probably like look into idol outfits that have like shorts. I thought of maybe doing like a thing with like, you know, like shorts and then that like waist cape thing. Like it's almost like an overskirt. Maybe something like that could work. Something like that could work. Because it needs to look very cute and girly and eggy girly cute and nice and fluffy and eggy. But like, again, with pant. But that will probably be for another time. I don't know what's this week is coming. I want to switch things up a little bit, but also Majora and Mahjong Monday are still happening. It will still happen. It's still gonna happen. So we are... I don't know if Katamari Tuesday will say, now that I've like run out of Katamari to Katamari. I'm probably gonna either buy the We Heart Katamari reroll or switch to something else on Tuesday. I guess I'll cross that bridge when I get there. Yeah, those interrupted, like, three-quarter skirts hollow idol outfits have too. Yeah, like, there definitely is inspiration you get from it. But yeah, at least it's not a problem IRL. Well, the thing is, even IRL, most of the time dancing outfits will usually have a shorter skirt. Like, you don't see a lot of like floor length tutus, right? Usually they're shorter so that like the dancer is less likely to get caught on stuff, but also because like, for the benefit of the audience, you can actually see what the dancer is doing. Or you see that with the Shape of Idol outfits. Like, for instance, like, a lot of the times, actually, Lolita dresses actually tend to make very poor idol outfits because, especially ones that kind of obscure the waistline. It's like, okay, if you obscure the hips and someone's doing a dance where they shake their hips, it's just gonna look like a giant jellyfish blob, right? Like, you're not gonna actually see the movement. So yeah, you'll notice that like some like dance outfits and idol outfits will often be like lower waisted, and I think that's why. It's just like you need to be able to actually see what they're doing. Do you play horror games? Not really. Not really. I've dabbled in some things that are like horror adjacent, but not really. Not really my thing. I don't know. I like the idea of horror games, but I'm just like, I don't know. I can be scared in real life for free. I don't need to go be scared on purpose. I can be scared by accident. But yes, I don't know how to end off a stream in a way that isn't just raiding. Anyone know how to do that? Anyone know how to do that? Has anyone figured out how to do that? But yes, I will probably be back on YouTube next week with something else, probably. And I will be on Twitch for the rest of the week. But yeah, schedule-wise, it'll probably be more or less the same. But yeah, in terms of what will be played, it might be a little different. But yeah, follow my Twitter because I do the singing march stuff there. I think that's all I have. That's all I have. Here's my cool end card. Yes, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to me yap, even if it is on a different place than usual. But yes, I will see you on Sunday on Twitch. And thank you for being here. Now I gotta go back to playing Animal Crossing on my Nintendo 3DS. Yes. Sorry. Goodbye, everybody. I have to go to the library. I have to go work out at the library. Yes, in the meantime, please look at my cool end card, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.